Up and going, praise Yah. Trying to make sure everybody on Facebook is aware that we're up and going. So let me do that since I don't have our normal setup right now. But at least people can come out here and know that we're on. They can come and listen. Praise Yah for that. We're excited. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer. And it's in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. All righty. How's everybody doing? Hopefully you're doing well. Let's see. All righty. I think we got everything that we're going to need on this end. All right. So we're continuing this series we've been doing for a little bit now on membership. Membership, what membership is, what we're talking about when we're remembering, coming into remembership, coming back into the knowledge of who we are, and what that means for us at SOC. And hello, everybody. How you doing? Demetrius, how you doing? Minister Tamara, how you doing? Drea, Takwa. Cover your six. How you doing? Sister Nadine King. Wulu Wapang. I don't know if I said that correctly. Okay. Wulu Wapang. Yeah, child, how you doing? Sister Sage, Sister Toya. Oh, Sister Toya, I still need to reach out to y'all. I apologize. Thanks for being on, sis. How you doing, Sister Sherry? Please check out Sister Toya's stuff, by the way. Appreciate her heart and where y'all's dealing with her and her family. How you doing, Stephen? Okay, I forgot it already though. Wapu Wala. Let me rewind and see if I got that right. Oh, Wulu Wapan, Wulu Wapan, Wulu Wapan. I'm gonna get it one of these days. You might have to remind me a couple more times, sis. Wulu Wapan. I was taught a long time ago, if you learn other languages, learn other cultures, one of the first things you should do. Actually, was taught this by by KRS-One. Listening to him speak, but he said one of the things that you should always learn, and something that our people used to teach all the time, no matter what language you learn, you should always learn how to greet people, how to say thank you. Yeah, how to greet people and how to say thank you. If you can do that, you'll get pretty far in life, no matter where you travel. If you can always say hello to people, and you can always make sure that you respect them enough to say thank you. And also, I'm sorry, it's say hello, say thank you, and to say please. If you can learn those three, no matter what language you're learning, you're doing pretty well for yourself. Amen. How you doing, Doreen? Bless you. How you doing, Sister Knight? How you doing, Crystal? How you doing, Sister Stephen? How you doing, Sister Tori? You hear double time? Okay, cool. How you doing, Sister Deja? Crystal, anybody, if I miss you, charge it to my head and not to my heart. We appreciate you so much. Oh, okay, you taking me to another place now. I don't know if I remember that one right off jump. Anushik, is that right? Anushik. This thank you, Anushik. And then what was the first one? Wulu. Uh-oh. Wulu. I'm gonna have to look it up. I have to cheat. Wulu Wapan. And Anushik. Wulu Wapan and Anushik. Okay. The homework assignments for me. Wulu Wapan and Wulu Wapan and something chic. Anushik. Okay. Thank you. All right. So let's go ahead and get into today. Bless everybody. Thank you for spending some time with us again. We appreciate you. To the moderators, to the ministerial staff, to SOC, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you, SOC, as we continue to talk about membership. Today, we are and to the moderators, I bow down. Thank you for what you do. How you doing, Sister Nadine? Saw you shift over. Yeah, I know. I don't have any shea butter with me. I'm going to have to get all these bites that are coming up on me. I'm going to have to rub the shea butter in after the fact. So y'all going to see me doing this the whole time. I'm in a really bad area for it. I forgot I'm close to some water over in this area that I was led to today. Didn't even think about bringing my stuff. So it is what it is. But thank you all so much. Y'all just pray for your boy. I'm gonna try to not look like I'm doing this all rising. But we're thankful for another opportunity. How you doing, Brother Alex? Uh, Thankful for another opportunity to sit in front of you guys. So we've talked about family. I'm sorry. In this 7 F's, these 7 pillars that are going to be part of our membership, training and all the stuff that we're doing when people come in to be in membership and remembering who we are. We're talking about. Uh, we talked about faith first. We talked about family. That was on Tuesday. Yesterday we talked about um, faith, we talked about food. Praise God. And now today we're going to talk about fortune. This is on our website. I just realized we got to update the mobile version of it too. So my bad. If you have the mobile version, if you're looking on the website, the 7 F's, I guess, don't appear yet, and some of the other updates. So we'll make sure that the mobile site is updated as well soon. Right now, though, if you have access to a Mac or a computer or a laptop or a MacBook or whatever, probably even an iPad or actually, I don't know if they consider that mobile or not. Maybe an iPad and maybe your tablet, you might be able to see the 7 F's on there, but you can see the 7 F's on what we would call back in the day a computer or a laptop before it had all these interesting names that come with it now. Um, but you can read about these 7 F's. And today we're going to start with fortune. And fortune is not just financially only, although that's a big part of it, but we want to talk about fortune because fortune for us is different in our culture, right? Some people in their culture, they think of fortune as something that you need a fortune teller, right? Some cultures, they think that good fortune is the same as saying good luck. We don't even use the word good in our culture, right? Right. But for us, when we say fortune, this is what we mean. At some point, this might even turn into finance, but really, I think we should stay honor. I prayed about this before we started, getting into this. Should we change this to finance or not? But really, fortune is something that goes a lot deeper than it. So when we say fortune, this is what we're saying. Our working definition for fortune says our money is important, or not our working definition, but what we think fortune is about. Our money is important. We believe that currency is necessary to get actual assets. Just to be clear, money is not our goal. Money is our path to greatness. Money should lead us to getting land, gold, silver, real estate, books, steel, weapons, etc. We are looking to get our hand on as much money as possible to open up as many businesses as possible. We also need to teach the language of money. Let us speak in terms that are connective to IRAs, stocks, bonds, banking, ownership, and much, much more. I'm gonna say that again. How you doing, Smartwatch, and how you doing, Big Brother Thomas? We were praying for you guys earlier this rising. Hopefully, y'all are doing all right on your journey. And if sister, I'm trying to call her the wrong name. Sister Tanya, Sister Tanya is with you, and she's listening as well, or anybody who's with you. We appreciate y'all praying for your safe travels and all that great stuff. So y'all can see so many of them. Y'all can see them. They coming past the camera now. They bold. They're trying to get on TikTok with y'all. Praise y'all. All righty. So our money is important. We believe that currency is necessary to get actual assets. How you doing, Debrew? Just to be clear, money is not our goal. Money is our path to greatness. Money should lead us to getting land, gold, silver, real estate, books, steel, weapons, etc. We're looking to get our hand on as much money as possible to open up as many businesses as possible. We also need to teach the language of money. Let us speak in terms that are connective to IRAs, stocks, bonds, banking, ownership, and much, much more. How you doing, Sister Deborah? How you doing, Sister Mignon? So when we're saying these things, when we're talking about money, when we're talking about fortune, and how you doing, Sister and I, or Minister and I, excuse me, and Brother Alton. So when we're speaking on these things, we must make sure and recognize and be careful that we don't take money out of context or fortune out of context. Fortune, first of all, as we're going to get in today, it starts with a mindset. You guys have heard me talk about different things. Some of you are taking sovereignty classes. Some of you are taking cryptocurrency. By the way, I realized a lot of us took cryptocurrency. We still didn't set up our crypto wallets. So we need to make sure that we do that ASAP. But when we're talking about these things, fortune is bigger than just physical, right? Fortune starts with a mindset. I want to do some teaching because a lot of people, once again, will go straight to, okay, well, tell me about this. What's the difference between an IRA and a Roth IRA? Tell me why I should go ahead and invest in this. What kind of life insurance should I get? What kind of this and that? And thank you for the love. And how you doing, Zahara? How you doing, Romac? And a lot of people want to go there first. But fortune is a mindset, right? As I said, as it's indicated on here, on what we read off of the website, when we say fortune, right? When somebody says, man, you're fortunate, they're not always thinking about finance, right? Hey, how you doing, Sister Saul? Glad to see you on here. Right? When somebody talks about you're fortunate, you don't think first finance, do you? Now, money is important, but it's a mindset. How you doing, Mr. Biscuits? It is important, but it's a mindset. How you doing, Sister Latoya? It is important, but it is what? It is a mindset. I want us to agree on that, right? And if you don't agree on it, well, maybe I can try to persuade thee, right? But at the end of the day, I need to tell you that money is a mindset. How you doing, Brother Keith? And by the way, as a reminder, those of you who are in the Georgia area, we're going to try not tomorrow, but next Saturday, July the 1st, to see if we can do a meetup in Georgia. It's going to be somewhere in between South Georgia and Atlanta, okay? We're going to try and put the word out, see how many people are able to come. Depending on how many people say they're coming and how fast they say they're coming, it might be potluck. If not, if it's just a few of us, it'll kind of be bring your own food. All right, just as a reminder. So don't have the address yet. It won't be in Atlanta like we've done before in the past. We need to make sure that we do something so that other people can meet up from other places. All right. Hey, Jambo, how you doing? Jambo, thanks for being on. Right. Jambo, Mimi, Kofi, Nina, Frau, Kukutana, and women. Glad to have you on. So if we're speaking on fortune, it's a mindset. I want to show you how wicked a mindset of this beast is, this system is, and how it's got us messed up, how it has us ready to fight one another, and how it has us ready to tear each other apart rather than listen and help one another. How you doing, Sister Betty? All right. Fortune. 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 Let's just do something simple. Things. How you doing, Sister Tracy? Right? Are you ready? What is, y'all tell me, what is the definition of a male or a female? Whichever one you want to take a crack at. How you doing, Sister Samaya LeRae? Or Minister Samaya LeRae, excuse me. It's frozen for you. Is it frozen for everybody else on TikTok? Are we freezing up? I tried to go straight to the hotspot because y'all told me yesterday the hotspot was doing better. So I tried not to stay on the regular signal. It's not frozen? No? Okay. Oh, we're back? Okay, so it did freeze for a second. All right, I'll try to keep an eye on it. Right, the hotspot actually has less signal than what the other one does, but we'll see. Because usually this is the one that you guys say is best. I tried to flip to this one today, but it could be a TikTok thing at this point. When we're using the same thing on TikTok and YouTube, and yet TikTok has a harder time than YouTube does every time. We might just have to see what that is, right? But anyways, what is the definition of male or female? Right? You guys just tell me what it is. I want to show you how messed up the mindset is. And I'm not saying this to say who's even right or wrong. I'm going to show you something after we go through these definitions. But y'all tell me, right? It can be just quick, easy. It can be something simple. You can talk about the chromosome. You can talk about whatever. What is your definition? When you hear somebody say male or female, what is that? What is that defined as? If somebody is a male or female, how do we define that? I just want to give just a quick. It's not going to be the only thing we use. Somebody said childbearing, so if we're talking about a female, okay, childbearing, okay. What's the definition of a male or a female? Man and woman, okay. And how you doing, Brother Trevon? Anything else? Male, female? There's so many, right? Now, the reason why I ask, and how you doing, Jason? The reason why I ask is this. I'm not even going deep into that part of the discussion yet, right? Or if at all. I just want to show you some stuff as far as mindset. What is the government's? Here's the next question. What is the government's definition of a male or female? My wife and I were having a discussion today, and the Holy Spirit kind of had this pop up. It was an awesome word that I've never really heard before, right? What is the definition? The government's definition. You said their characteristics and what they identify as. You said, where are we going? Stick around. You'll be able to find out. We're talking about fortune and stuff, but every fortune comes behind a mindset. So just give it a chance, right? And by the way, this is a whole series. So somebody might hear one piece of it, and if you're not careful, you'll probably take it out of context. But I'm very great at contextual facts. I don't give facts without context and context without facts. So somebody would say the genetic makeup. Okay. Something else. How you doing, Sister Juanetta? According to reproductive organs they're born with. Okay. Watch this. Now I'm gonna ask another question. I like to ask why a lot. Here's another question for you. Does your birth certificate represent a real person? How you doing, Brother Jermaine? The question now, this next question, how you doing, Brother Dwayne? This next question, once again, does your birth certificate represent a real person? I'm going somewhere, right? As much as somebody's trying to say, I'm just here where I'm going, and it's probably not where you think I'm going, right? Birth certificate is not a real person, especially if it's in all caps, or if it says Mr. or Ms., or if it puts it, reverses the names, or it has like your last name first and then things first or whatever, right? Legalism, I'm talking about legalese, but I'm talking about law. I'm talking about natural law. I'm talking about, even stuff as far as law of attraction. And yes, we got to talk about universal law, substantive law, public law, private law, procedural law, remedial law, common law, admiralty law, which some people will even marry sometimes, with maritime law, law of equity. Sure. Yes, we're talking about law, because everything that's lawful is not legal. Not everything that's legal is not everything that's lawful is always legal. Not everything that's legal is always lawful. Okay. But I'm trying to get you to comprehend something as far as a mindset that we have messed up. Regardless of what your thought process is on what your fight is for LGBTQ plus, or if you are anti-LGBTQ plus, or if you're human rights, anti-human rights, whatever you want to call people, right? Right? Like, what are we talking? So the government, watch this. So what are the questions I asked? I asked first, what do you think a male or female is? Secondly, then I said, what is it that the government says a male or female is, which most people probably don't even know. And I'll show you the reason why in a second. Thirdly, I asked, is your birth certificate an actual person? Is it a real person? The answer, of course, is no. Now, why do you think I asked that? I have another question I'm going to ask, but I want you to just think, going down this line of reasoning, what do you think my next question would be following this logic? I want us to think a little bit different. How you doing, Sister Austria? How you doing, Keisha? Right? If my first question was, what is your definition of male or female? My second question is, what is the government's definition of male or female? My third question was, is your birth certificate a real person? What do you think I'm going to ask next? You said, what are the three laws? What are you talking about? Which context, which culture? Are you talking about what's considered to be common law? If you're talking about common law, then technically, even though common law is really based off of English and British law, but I get what people mean by common law. Technically, three laws. If you're talking about common law, you're talking about what? Don't harm anybody, don't lie to anybody, don't steal from anybody, right? Like those are and everything else that falls under that is a statute, if you're talking about that. But it depends on what you're talking about. I don't know what culture you're bringing up. That's a very long thing, right? So you said, can your birth certificate be male or female? That's a great place. That's a great question that I was going. That's almost identical to the question I was about to ask. So once again, I asked, what is your definition of a male or female? Second question I ask is, well, what is the government's definition of a male or female? Third question I ask is your birth certificate a real person? The answer to that, of course, is no. So then the next question, right, is, if my birth certificate is not even a real person by law, if my birth certificate is not even a real person, it is not a natural person, it is a front, it is a straw man, right? It is not a natural person, it is an artificial person by law. So therefore, if my birth certificate is an artificial person, and that means if my birth certificate says I'm male, female, or otherwise, they are all artificial versions of people. You see why we're going there? I want you to see there's some things we're going to shake up today, right? All of them, according to your birth certificate, which is what you claim all the time, which is what you use on your bank cards and your checkbooks. And we talked about that check line on there. That it's not an actual line, but it's an actual. It says MP next to a microprint. You're supposed to zoom in and see what you're signing on top of, and you're actually putting your real signature on there with a capital first letter and all caps second. Rest of it, and then a capital first letter for the last name, and all cap, and then all lowercase for the next, and then you're authorizing the all caps version of you to be able to do business with something else, right? I'm trying to tell you all this because that means that your birth certificate, they don't even have. There's really no, it's an artificial male. You're looking to the government to tell you what a male is, but the government says you're artificial anyways. So why would I look to them to teach me what a male is? Why would I, if you're a female, right, and you on your birth certificate, the government says you're an artificial person anyways. Why would I look to them to tell me what a female is? But if I'm a non-citizen national, if I'm an actual real person, if I don't get benefits or privileges from the system, then it means I have the right to say what a male or female is to me, and I can choose to be in my own culture. And hey, how you doing, Nikki? Thanks for being on. Yeah, we're gonna get into it today, Sister Deja. See, we got to have real conversation. I ain't doing tomorrow. A lot of us are talking about things, and you're talking about being real, not even realize that you are registered to the state. If you're registered to the state, everybody's a ward of state. Y'all think the ward of state is the one that lost their parent. Everybody's a ward of state because you all registered your children with the state. All of your children are considered to be artificial. Why would the government care about meeting your real needs when all they need you to do is to be artificial plugs into the system? And thank you for the love. Appreciate it. How you doing? One cream is popping. Right? Why would somebody care about who you really are if they look at you as artificial? You're not an actual person. Matter of fact, why would they care about you as a people? Because a people is a nation. Persons is the plural of person. And you can be an artificial person, therefore become artificial persons, and never be a nation. We've talked about this before over and over and over again. 28 USC, this is United States Code, 28 USC 3002 15A. Says what? United States is a corporation. 28 USC 3002 15B says the United States is a board. That's why you're president, vice president, secretary, treasurers, right? 28 USC 3002 15C tells us specifically that it is instrumentalization. It can be publicly traded. Nowhere in there do you find that it's a government. This is why you falsely believe that the United States has a capital when Washington, D.C. cannot be a capital. Matter of fact, the land has been asked back by the state that gave it to them. However, because Congress has no jurisdiction without D.C. and D.C. only exists as long as it's as long as it's subject to Congress, you have to have a fake corporation that has a fake capital where they can protect the board, Congress, part of the board, Congress, and of course, the president and other people that are part of it. They can make sure that those things are protected. They have no jurisdiction outside of a fake place, right? To where the land's not even owned. This is why when you go to DC, nobody in DC who owns a house owns the land that the house is on. Go look it up for yourself. How you doing, Eddie? Thanks for being part of the community. Not one of them. At any time, they can say, y'all kick rocks. I've seen them do it over and over again. Nowhere in DC does anybody own land. Congress owns the land because the corporation owns the land. So Congress gets to tell you what to do, right? I'm saying that I'm going somewhere. See, we're talking about fortune, but I just need you to catch your mindset. Now, what if I were to tell you that a lot of you don't even realize, like I said, before we get into fortune, we got to realize what's going on. We got to look at the foundation. Let's look at something real simple. 1099. If you have a 1099 and you work for somebody, I guarantee you that your 1099 is not even real. Somebody says, no, that's not true. I got my 1099. Question for you. Those of you who have a 1099, does somebody tell you what time you're supposed to show up? Uh-oh. Hold up. If you got your 1099, does anybody tell you what time you're supposed to show up? Does anybody tell you what you're supposed to wear? Does anybody tell you what what hours you have to work, what phone calls have to sound like? It's supposed to be no, but there's a lot of people who have a 1099, and that's not the answer. The answer is yes, somebody does tell me. They tell me what to wear. They tell me when to show up. So if you, but the government or many different people you work for, this is something even in you might think this is trivial, but even something like the World Wrestling Entertainment Company, WWE used to be known as WWF before that WWF and all that stuff, right? You'll find that even with them, that's been an argument for a long time that they're supposed to be on 1099, but they can't do whatever they want. They can't even have their own social media. A lot of them aren't even allowed to make sure that they can go online and do like Twitch or something and make something for themselves, right? How you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Maya. Please check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Thank you, babe, for being on. I love you very much. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. So, so a lot of people are talking about 1099s, but your 1099 doesn't mean what you think it is if you have to bow down to somebody else. Now, am I saying that somebody with a 1099 shouldn't make sure they're dressed the part and they shouldn't do certain things and have certain order and make sure that they're structured and they should just get a paycheck for doing nothing? Absolutely not. This for educational purposes as always, and sometimes I have to make that clear because people will hear me say something and they'll try to automatically pigeonhole you, pigeonhole, whatever. They try to force you into this box or try to say this is what you think, and because they be on some other stuff fighting battles that are not even ours. How you doing, Sister Monica? Right, but I need you to recognize something, that they've got you on this weird trajectory because they have you believing some stuff that's not real. Right? Artificial persons, artificial title, 1099, you working it, you don't even realize what's going on. When we talk about fortune, would it surprise you if fortune is for everybody and not just for those who earn it? Now, let me change it because some people don't like that word earn there. Fortune is for everybody, right? Fortune is for everybody. However, fortune is not based off of just if you work the hours, if you did this, whatever. Fortune is supposed to be for the community. If your community is fortunate, then everybody in the community has fortune. Right, now that we shaked it up a little bit, right? And some of that stuff, if you want to go even deeper into that, I have not read the whole book yet. I just started getting into it. There's many different books we could say. I think the book that we were talking about today, my wife and I, that she has introduced to me, is the fruit from a poisonous tree. If you want to look up some of the stuff, even the more in-depth stuff, fruit from a poisonous tree. At some point, we might even do a little class on the side. We won't be able to talk about everything on these platforms, but we can possibly go to Zoom and maybe do something there, right? But fruit from a poisonous tree, very great book. Many other books on there, books on common law, books on all types of stuff that you should go read. But fruit from a poisonous tree, and it'll help you to start comprehending some of these things, because the first thing it talks about is that it's not the first thing. How about in the first chapter, one of the things that it talks about, and I'm actually going to expand a little bit on it. It talks about, however, something that's extremely important for us to get is that we just believe whatever somebody tells us. It doesn't take that much to get you to move. Thank you, by JD Stamper. Yep, that's exactly the one, right? We just believe what somebody tells us. It doesn't take that much to move you. All somebody has to say is it's a statute or it's a law or it's legal, and you automatically think you have to bow down to it. And so if you've been less fortunate, but you keep you keep listening to whoever's been in charge during your lack of fortune, there's a problem with that. Melvin Stamper, sorry, Melvin Stamper, JD. Okay, thank you, Melvin Stamper, JD. Right, like I need you to hear something when you're talking about the unfortunate. Right, there's a lot of people unfortunate that keep listening to the lawmakers, to the people that give you the statutes. Now, what is a statute? A statute is basically a choice. It's something you can choose to follow or not. By the way, there's some statutes you should follow, some statutes you shouldn't, but statutes are always optional. And the JD for Melvin Stamper stands for Juris Doctor, attorney. Okay, thank you. So, and all these things, right? You have to make it a point to start thinking to yourself, who have I been listening to? And what has it led me to? See, once again, fortune, and even in our working, or not even working definition, but how we explain it, we talk a lot about money. But if you notice what is written and what I was given by the Holy Spirit when we wrote this out, is that our money is important. We believe that currency is necessary, what, to get actual assets. But currency talks about flow. Currency doesn't mean saving everything up. Matter of fact, one of the things that becomes difficult is the only way we usually move is that I have to save everything up. The way that we're set up with the EIN and everything, and the way that we have to kind of depend on donations, you have to save, because if you were to spend stuff, a lot of people don't necessarily give, even though they partake. And I'm not saying you, anybody in particular. You guys know who you are, who you're not, right? If the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't, take it off. But I'm just saying, in general, with our people, with our diaspora, if we would just want to be honest. And how you doing, Sister Irena? With our diaspora, let's just be honest. A lot of times we want stuff, but we want stuff once it's complete. We don't want what it takes to be fortunate, right? I'm going to look up something real quick. I don't know if I'm going to find it, but I'm going to look it up real quick. I'm going to look up a quote. Okay, I'm not going to find it. I was looking for a quote on freedom by Thomas Jefferson, even though Thomas Jefferson was somebody who made sure you weren't free. But one of the things that we can learn from these people, right? Even if, right? Even if we don't like the people, they still drop some gems, because you must realize Thomas Jefferson, while having slaves, did not want to be a slave himself. This is why they didn't want to pay taxes, because anybody that's in debt is a slave. Anybody that's a slave is in debt, right? I don't know if I'm gonna find it, the one I'm looking for. Okay, it basically says something along the lines of, if, I'm not going to say it anywhere close to what I want though, something along the lines of, basically, if you want freedom but you don't want to work for it, then you don't deserve freedom. That's not what he said exactly. I'm trying to find the exact quote. But basically, if you want freedom but you're not willing to work for it, yeah, I can't find it on here. Maybe it's not as famous as I thought it was. Maybe it's just something that hits me hard whenever I hear it. But it's something along the lines of, if you want freedom, how you doing, Sherry? But you won't work for it, then you don't deserve it. If you want fortune but you're not willing to work for it, then you don't deserve it. How you doing, Margaret? And in our people, in our community, in our culture, we're supposed to work for it. Watch this. Here's how wild this stuff is with fortune. And you sow into it for everybody else, but we don't sow into it for ourselves. Freedom and ignorance don't exist. Okay, amen. I think that's another one, or might be part of the same one. Basically, yeah, that freedom and ignorance don't exist. Or no. Well, that's another one, I think. But that's a great one too. Freedom and ignorance. Just because you're ignorant doesn't mean that you deserve to be free. Type thing, kind of same thing. If you're not working towards something, what are we doing? How you doing, Sister Gertrude? But freedom and ignorance don't exist. If you want freedom, you won't work for it. Watch this. In our culture, we say something like, we should make sure we take care of each other and sow into each other and set aside financial gain with each other, and make sure that we feed each other, and make sure that we teach our own children. This is something that's cultural. Every country does this. Every tribe does this. Or we know that word tribe, really comes from something else. So we want to talk about every branch, every family, every kingdom, every nation, whatever. Every nation does this and recognizes the importance of this. Right? It's truly important and necessary to do these things for yourself, to create your own fortune, to teach yourselves how to give. Right? It's important. Right? But for whatever reason, we don't believe in doing this for ourselves. In our culture, well, not even in our culture's been stripped from us. That's why we're coming back into remembrance of who we always are, always were. How you doing, Brother Vargas? Right? But when we talk about culture, when we're talking about the importance of culture, um, we're one of the only people who think that we're going to get fortune by continuing to be separated one from another. Okay, thank you. My wife found the quote. Thank you, babe. It's if a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. Bars. Whether you like Thomas Jefferson or not, and I know who Thomas Jefferson is, a gentleman that he is, he can go ahead and stay over there in his lane, right? But that's bars. Whether you like it or not, how you doing, Leslie? If a nation, which by the way, the word nation and people is interchangeable, right? So if you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, well, if a nation, if a people, if you expect to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization. Civilization means how you have civilized, are you as civilized through your own lens and your own culture. That's why you call somebody wild. If you call somebody wild or you call an animal wild, what you're saying is that they don't fit into your civilization. An animal in the Serengeti is not wild, right? That is civilized for them. What they do over there is what they do over there, right? A zebra over in the same place is not wild. What they do over there is what they do, right? When you bring a lion and you try to put him in captivity, right? You are not dealing with a lion that's never been tamed. You're dealing with a lion that's actually going to act out of pocket. You've never seen a lion in the zoo. You've seen a lion that's out of its civilization in the zoo. The lion is actually wild when it's in the zoo. When it's in its civilization, it's actually civilized, right? Same thing with you. A lot of you have never seen your people, your nation, right? Outside of a zoo, outside of a governing beast, right? With governing bodies that give you statutes and precepts and all this. We've seen everything else, right? But if a nation, if a people, if we expect to be ignorant and free in a state, in a nation, in a state of civilization, we expect what never was and never will be. There has never been a nation that has been ignorant and free. If they were ignorant and free, or if they became ignorant and free, then that's when they fell apart. How you doing, Shane? Right? If you want to look when Rome fell apart, start looking for when they started arguing what men and women were. If you want to look for when Rome fell apart, start looking for when they started trying to figure out if men should actually be worshipped as Caesars or not. If you want to look at when Rome fell apart, start looking to see if when they started thinking that nobody, all these nations that they conquered the way they did would never come against them. If you want to see when Rome fell apart, start looking at Justinian and Theodore when they started giving Western Rome charge under the Roman Catholic Church. When they became ignorant, when they went into ignorance, start looking at how to use taxes. True. If you want to know what ignorance is, right? If you want to know the nation that's ignorant, no nation starts out of ignorance. However, if they become ignorant, you can't be ignorant and free. What does it say again? What does it say again? The quote, I want to make sure I get it right. Right? If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. When Yashara'el was free, were you ignorant of the name Yahweh? Yeah, they imploded from the inside out. We always talk about the people who took over, but they took over leftovers. Kemet, when people go to Kemet and you see the stuff and all those things, and it's still great to see pyramids and stuff, but a lot of people don't show you all that city that's right next to it. You're just looking at remnants. You're looking at pieces. That thing fell apart. People have used the stones, the limestone, the rock, the gold, the silver, all the stuff that they had. They've taken it and they've taken it apart. It's when Kemet became ignorant of itself. Matter of fact, those who are so much into trying to talk that you're Kemetic or even Kemetic by spirit, even if you're not Kemetic by bloodline, a lot of y'all don't even know that chemistry comes from chemistry. Chemi is the study of black. Why? Because Kemet are people who believe that they came from the black earth. So everything concerning their minds of the melanin, of worship, of all this stuff is highly connected to blackness that comes from the ground. Right? But if you want that fortune, you have to first learn how to be civilized and what made them fortunate. You said, did I know that Jesus was the name of the first slave ship? Yeah, way past you. Jesus is not the name of Yahashua anyways. It's a whitewashed name. But yeah, they did use that name to make sure that they did quite a few different things. Yeah, most definitely. You go to the 1491, right? 1491 is when the Moorish king is defeated. 1492, Christopher Columbus sails the ocean blue with the intelligence of Africans and even takes a Hebrew interpreter with him over to what we now call Haiti and Dominican Republic. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's not beyond us. Jesus, by the way, means half man, half Zeus. It's not even what his name was. It was a nickname given to him, and a nickname that wasn't used until hundreds of years after his death. Right? I didn't even have to go into Constantine and all that other stuff. That's the low hanging fruit. You said your family is torn apart because of religion. Well, everybody's religious. The word religion literally means a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing. Well, you could talk about Yahashivai. You could talk about Amanava'al, right? Those are really the only two names he was given. Everything else is a nickname. Or if you want to go to where people are saying Yeshua or Yahushua or Yahavashai or Yahavashai, all that, well, those are dialect, where people were spread and spoke different languages. By the way, I'm Shwe, right? So when I go to home and I go to West Africa and I'm there with my people, these are things that we kept, and we kept scrolls and stuff that were burned into what we call, I guess we call paper today. Wasn't quite papyrus, but what we might call paper today, so that nobody would be able to change it. And these things have been documented, and have had people who are not even us look at them, and they'll tell you, oh yeah, these things come before Christ. Amanava'al, second name. Amanava'al would be what you call Emmanuel now, but we don't have an E sound in that culture, especially at that time period. I hear you, Minister Tamara. I'm floating a little bit. It's all gravy, right? But we're talking about. I promise you, I'll keep it back on track. But if we're talking about fortune today, once again, how do you get to a place of fortune and you don't even know what makes your culture fortunate? How did you spend money, right? Who's on your money? Right? People talking about stuff and trying to go straight to the thing. He mentioned the Bible, so let me hit you with the Jesus thing. I know that already. I don't look at the Bible the way you look at the Bible. No offense to anybody, but I've learned it in its original Avda. And even when people try to say, which is the Paleo Hebrew, and then when people even try to say stuff like, oh no, you got to go to the what's the one that y'all always go to because y'all don't want to admit it's Hebrew, into that Balaam doctrine that people don't even know what that is. What's that one y'all like to go to? The language you like to say that it's written in not Hebrew, but you like not Greek, which came later, the Septuagint, and after that, then it became tradition to write half of it in Hebrew, half of it in Greek. That's nonsense. Aramaic. Thank you, babe. Aramaic is what a lot of y'all. Now, a lot of the Jewish language is a mix of Yiddish and other languages in there, Germanic languages, Yiddish languages, Anglo-ish, obviously Khazarian, Ashkenazi, etc. Right? But Aramaic is what everybody goes to. But people don't even study Aramaic. People, they had an Aramaic language, but they didn't use an Aramaic writing. They used the Alphabet, or what you call the Aleph Bet, which is what came before the alphabet, right? The Aleph Bet, which is Avda or Hebrew. And somebody says that doesn't make any sense. You're telling me that they were using somebody else's writing? Well, yeah, actually it does. You speak Anglo-ish, kind of sort of Anglo with a lot of other languages mixed in, right? So you speak Anglo-ish or English. But what language do you write in? See, I'm trying to tell you about fortune. We can't even talk about our fortune because we're so busy arguing on behalf of other people's. What language do you write in? Those who are speaking English and typing in English right now, so to speak, you swear you're typing in English. You speak English, but you're not typing in English right now. What do you speak? What are you typing? What language are you using to type to me right now? We could say Phoenician if we're talking about the alphabet for real. But yeah, most of us would have to say the Greek. You're speaking to me, you're writing in Greek, or at least leftovers of Greek. You're not writing to me in Latin. You might be speaking in Latin. By the way, the English language is 40% French, but obviously French is Latin, so you got to take that 40% and move it over to Latin, of course. But you're not typing up or writing anything to me right now. Or if you were to text me or anything, you're using what you think are Greek characters. Those Greek characters, a lot of them based off of Hebrew characters, right? So once again, how do we talk about our fortune and we don't even realize that the fortune that we're trying to get, what we're typing in, what we're going to do, this business acquisitions and all that in, you don't even know that that's not your culture. We're having arguments on stuff that has nothing to do with us. But the first thing we do is, you mentioned the Bible. Let me tell you why Jesus was a slave ship. I know. I have no problem with that. What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Right? I'm just trying to lay a foundation because we're having an issue here. And I get it. We're hurt. We're frustrated. We're trying to figure this out. We're trying to figure it out through his story. I would like to interject the story. And if you would like, even let's go into your story. Well, instead of saying it like that, and first of all, hello to you. How you doing? Let's start off with this. Tell me what I'm saying that's wrong. Because I actually do teach and do this for a living. So, but once again, since you're teaching the teacher, and looks like you got muted for a little bit, so when you come back on, tell me what I'm wrong in. Don't use ad hominem because that means you're apologetically unsound. If the first place you have to go to is ad hominem, then it means that basically gaslighting is right around the corner. You're using a straw man, once again, presenting arguments and things like that are going against things that are not even my stance, nor do you know my stance. But how do we talk about your fortune? See, I can tell the unfortunate when I listen to them text, or when I watch the text, or when I read the text, whatever. It sounds like unfortunate. It sounds like you're an unfortunate. It sounds like you don't even know the flow of currency. Sounds like you're saving, but you're not giving. How you doing, Happy Haze? I can hear it. How you doing, Glam? Thanks for being part of the community. Right? No shade on you. I'm just telling you, you're somebody who does this, does life coaching, marital coaching, travels, sees people in person, goes to different places, is actually working towards stuff, is working on looking at some land right now to be able to start growing food for us and doing things like that. I can tell that somebody who you've made an assumption, right, about me or whatever, and have no clue what my life is or what it's dedicated to, or what even these people who are on here who actually know each other, talk to each other, meet each other, whose children are involved with playing with each other. You just have a mindset where we're just making stuff up or whatever. Or you have a mindset that we're somebody that's not trying to cause real change. And it's unfortunate. I can hear it. Even without seeing it, I can hear it. And I wish there was more of me, or I was like the most high where I could be with everybody all the time. But I'm not the most high, and I praise you I'm not, because I would mess people up if I was. But see, our fortune is not based off of what everybody else says. So now that we've been showing you this, and how there's chinks in people's armors and cracks in these foundations, and people get frustrated because they're emotionally attached to things rather than actually looking at them for what they are, and we're dealing with the artificial person, the straw man, the birth certificate of who you are, and you've never really looked at salvaging who you are so that you might become better than what you are today, right? Using these terms correctly, and people talk about religion when religion literally means just a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing. So if I drink water today, then you drink water today, right? Right? Cheers. If I drink water to you, then you drink water with me, guess what? We share the same religion by definition. So now, what I would like to do is go from just not only sharing the same religion, so to speak. If we share the same religion, which is a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing, I would like for us to share in our fortune. Mostly attached to what they were taught in the system, yeah, and you can see it, you can even hear it. It's palpable even through the screen. Right? It's palpable through the airwaves. The airwaves carry energy, so guess what? I can still feel the energy, believe it or not. Even if I want to go esoteric, there we can feel it, right? For those who even want to use somebody else's cultural response or terminology or whatever, I'm with you. Right now, that that's being said, though, I would like us to share the same fortune. That means that I'm down for you and you down for me. That means that if I make a penny, you make a penny. Thank you, Lucas. Appreciate you. How you doing, Brother Eileen? That means if I ride for you, you ride for me. Fortune. We talked about this before. See, in our 7 F's, this is the 4th F, right? We talked about faith, family, food. Today we're talking about fortune. But I told you on the 2nd F, if it's not family, I don't want it. If it doesn't come with family, if it doesn't bless my family, right? I don't want it. If it means that I got to split from you and you got to split from me all the time, I don't want it. Now, if it means that we got to talk about obviously everything in its place, the Most High, right, comes first. But I'm saying if we have the same mindset, this is why I'm trying to tell you about the mindset of fortune. Do you have a mind for fortune? How you doing, Dennis? Do you have the mind set for fortune? Right? You have the mindset for fortune. How you doing, user 67372? Right? Do you have the mindset that there's not anything? Watch this. That's why we were talking about the government in the first place. Your mindset of male or female is based off of the government's mindset of male or female. But the problem with that is that the government has no real mindset of male or female, because according to your birth certificate, you're not a real person. If you're not a real person, then how can you be a real male or female? See, your petitions are falling on ears that could care less about you, deaf or otherwise. How you doing, Black Love? Right? Thanks. Right? Like, I'm just trying to set this correct. Let's get a proper foundation before we go out trying to hurt each other or tear each other up or tell you why somebody's better or worse or blah blah or all this stuff or whatever. Like, let's have some honest conversation, some honest dialogue. Thank you for the love. Appreciate you. Let's have some honest dialogue, some honest conversation. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? What is going to make you fortunate? I don't have a patent on SOC. That's why people make SOC shirts, and if they feel like giving, they give. I don't have a patent on it. It's not right. Technically, I have the EIN, so I can make sure that if somebody's messing with it, I can make sure that we protect it. But other than that, it's not mine. In Black's Law Dictionary, person is a monster. It depends on, yeah. So a person can be considered to be a monster. Really talking about the word human, right? But yeah, depending on which Black's Law Dictionary you're looking at, there's 12 editions, right? But yeah, but if you're a real person, and if you're a natural person, then yeah, you are considered a monster. Why? Because you can tear the system apart. So yeah, very much so. And are you okay with that? Are you okay with being a community that's monstrous to the beast? See, don't you see? Watch this. There, even the Book of Revelation, right? In the Book of Revelation, a lot of people think it's called revelation, but it's not spelled Reveal, right? It's not Reveal, right? Ation. It's spelled Revelation. It's not revelation, it's revelation. And people get it out of context. You keep trying to figure out what needs to be revealed in it. But the word reveal means to rejoice, to be excited, to be happy, to have your synapses fired away to where it makes everything great, to be celebratory, which means that revelation for those that are part of the right community and part of the right nation and are going to the right place, the similar place, it means that when we revel, when we see certain things, we revel in them, while everybody else is scared or put off by it because it's not their culture. It's not something that's going to apply to them. So our fortune and what we put and look at being fortunate is stuff we revel in. Everybody else sees it and they trying to figure out what's revealed so they can come against it, or to try and tell you why it's not real, this and that or whatever. But for us, we read it so we can rejoice. For everybody else, they're looking for something different. You said, can I explain the birth certificate not being a person? Sure. By common law, right? Now, we're not going to go by the basic common law, what somebody asked me what the three are in the beginning, but if we're talking about common law today, so when you hear the term common law basically is dealing with when you're dealing with the British or the English. The English, they had a bunch of territories, a bunch of stuff. They had a bunch of lords over lands, all this stuff. And so in every lord had a little kingdom underneath the kingdom. Right, he had a territory underneath the kingdom, or if you were governor, but you were under the king, etc. Right, so you have all this stuff as far as your birth certificate going on. I'm sorry, excuse me, as far as common law going on, right? Or laws, period, in general. So what somebody does, especially in the 1800s, is they say, okay, how can we take all of these different laws of all these different lands and say, hey, this is all English law? So it becomes what? Common law was common it's going to become common to everybody. We're going to pick and choose what things we like, and we're going to say this is what we're going to govern ourselves by, and we're going to make this common law. This common law basically has now influenced Western law all over the world, right? 1700s, 1800s, by the way. I said 1800s only. It started in the 1700s, but I think it really got its power in the 1800s. So now, when you're dealing with common law, you're dealing with a whole bunch of stuff that's common to them within their culture or whatever, right? Now, if you are somebody, now we're getting to the place of doing a birth certificate. the ideas of birth certificate basically go with the 14th Amendment. So you're not even dealing with the 14th Amendment until 1868, I believe. So when you're talking about the 14th Amendment, and a lot of people are 14th Amendment citizens, a lot of people miss, once again, we don't know how law works. We don't study it. We don't care about studying it. We just go by what somebody else teaches us. How you doing, Black Steel? How you doing, Henry? So when they give you the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, this is what you were taught in school. 13th Amendment, slaves were freed. 14th Amendment, Black people could vote. 15th Amendment, did I go out of order? 13th Amendment, no, sorry, I did. 13th Amendment, slaves were free. 14th Amendment, everybody's an American. 15th Amendment, Black people could vote. That's what you were taught in school, right? How you doing? That's him. Reality, though, is that the 13th Amendment did not say chattel slavery was finished. They just said they could not make you slaves just because of the color of your skin. So if they arrest you, then now you are considered to be what? Chattel slave. If you get put in prison, stuff like that. So that's why they still pick cotton. That's why they still break rocks. That's why they still are put in boxes where they don't have light for months. That's why you can still take away their food. That's why they allow people to fight. You know, you used to call them Mandingo fights. Now they just have regular fights in prison where the COs watch. And now it's not based only on color, but now everybody who gets put in there, they treat you like a slave. But yes, they still use the color dynamic to a certain degree because they realize that still keeps people in order and in check. So the 13th Amendment never changed much of anything. It just said if we arrest you, we can still treat you the way we used to. The 14th Amendment, which is what you're really dealing with this birth certificate thing, I'm going to explain that in a second. The 14th Amendment, right, is dealing with what? 14th Amendment is dealing with us as far as people thinking that they're not slaves anymore. Sorry. So look at it like this. What happened when General Sherman went down and he defeated the he basically pretty much tore apart most of what was left of the Confederacy. When General Sherman went down there, he tore it up. He had all these Black people, Africans, natives, Negroes, Moors, whichever you like to call them, following them, all these former slaves. He sends a wire back to Washington, D.C. and says, what should I do? I got all these Black people following me, right? The lost cause comes a little after this, right? But the lost cause, you're in the same mindset, you're in the same time period, right? So, or you're not that far time period, right? But General Sherman sends a wire, somebody from the White House says, talk to them, see what they want. So they sit down, and who represents us as a people? 4 Black pastors, right? Former slaves, but 4 Black pastors. They come in, they basically say, General Sherman says, what do y'all want? They say, look, all the stuff that happened, it is what it is. I'm putting it in a modern speech for you, right? They say, look, all the stuff that happened, it is what it is. We're sorry, it happened. We can't take it back. Evil was done. It is what it is. That being said, though, he said that they told him, we don't want you to give us, you don't need to be over us. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do that. You don't need to put us in your schools. You don't need to give us any of your money. They said, all we really want is a place that we can make sure we teach our own, we make our own stuff, we create our own values and lifestyles based off of our creator, and we want to be left alone. General Sherman hears this and likes this quite a bit. And so General Sherman says, okay, cool, I'm with it. And he agrees and comes up with 40 acres and a mule. Abraham Lincoln never gave you 40 acres and a mule. General Sherman did. He had the authority to do so, so he did. All right. Now, that at that point, you began to be called freedmen, right? You were not Black at that point. I'm not saying that you were ever known as Black anywhere in the world, but at that point, those particular people who we keep talking about, they need reparations and all that, they were not known as Black, right? I know Black people are looking for reparations, but they were not known as Black. They were a people. They were a nation called freedmen, right? And so these freedmen were here, were around. So once the freedmen started doing their thing, they started making too much money. There was even something called the Freedmen Bank. Now, Abraham Lincoln did help Frederick Douglass to establish that. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. That's nice. I've never seen that one before. All right. So Abraham Lincoln did help to establish the Freedmen Bank, but Frederick Douglass was the one that was over it. Abraham Lincoln is offed, right? He's assassinated, not just because of his stance on what he did as far as the freeing slaves, but also because he was trying to bring those greenbacks in, right? He was trying to bring fortune in, like we're talking about today, right? He was trying to bring in greenbacks. So the greenbacks, they're not the same as the dollar. He was going to make sure that we weren't under the Federal Reserve Bank, He even is quoted saying that he had an enemy that was in front of him and an enemy that was behind him. What was he saying? The banks are all up behind me, and I'm fighting the Confederacy in front of me. And I don't know, but I got two enemies. I'm trying to defeat them both. Right? He gets offed basically because he's trying to get those greenbacks. By the way, look at why JFK was assassinated. He told the Federal Reserve. Now they weren't called the Federal Reserve in Lincoln State. They were called either First, Second, or Third National Bank, whichever one they were on at that point, right? But the Federal Reserve Bank, owned by the Rothschilds, right? And they put Ashkenazi and certain people in this position. It just is what it is. I'm not trying to, tell people that you have to hate these people. I'm telling you what is, right? Now you have, just like JFK, he was doing the same thing. He was saying, I looked in law, we're not even supposed to allow you guys to tell us what to do with money or tell us how to print it or whatever. He said, we're going to be done. We're going to come up with our own currency. We're going to pay you off. And then after that, thank you so much. And then he's gone. All of a sudden, his brother is gone, right? And they tried to Shanghai, they tried to do it and think that they were going to be more gangster than his family because they came from the Kennedy family. The Kennedy family were gangsters that then got alcohol. They made their money off of alcohol when it was illegal. Then they got themselves put in a position of power. Jack Kennedy, his father, who never quite made it to president, but he got his boy John to become president and tried to get his other boy Robert to become president, who ends up getting, off. And now they're bringing back another one, right? Isn't one of the other Kennedys now? He trying to run for president, So this is the stuff that, it just happens over and over and over again. Nevertheless, right, the 14th Amendment, back to that. So they offed Lincoln during that. They put in the vice president, right? The vice president, he then brings all the Confederacy back in and opens everything up for the Rothschilds, right? So the Rothschilds are back in position. They're back in play. So and they eventually take the land and the money that the people are making who are part of the Freedmen Bank and part of the Freedmen Nation, right? They eventually take all that and they're able to take it back over. So, and they make the 14th Amendment. So for people, you think the 14th Amendment means anybody who's born here, they're American now, but they did that for a reason. We were starting, and how you doing, Heidi? Thanks for being part of the community. We were starting as a diaspora, or a part of the diaspora that was here. We were starting to do really well. We were starting to be efficient. This is before they did the same thing with Wilmington, North Carolina. This is before they did what they did to Rosewood. This is before they did what they did to Seneca Village, or Seneca Falls Village, Seneca Village. This is before what they did to Tulsa. Like they did the same thing already. They said, this is in another century. Well, Wilmington was in the 19th century too, but the other ones happened in the early 20th century, right? But they did the same thing. So now the 14th Amendment, they put that up there and they say, now that we've taken y'all to make sure you guys don't get things going again, we're going to make a statute. This is not really a law, but we're going to make a statute. We're going to add the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. What does the 14th Amendment say? Anybody that's born in our territory or something, right? Whether it's actually the United States or it's the territory, anybody born here, they belong to us. That was very foreign before that. Now you just think about that worldwide, but that was very foreign because it doesn't matter where you come from, it matters who you come from. That's why till this day, going back to the birth certificate and stuff, you should really make sure that you are part of a nation, right? But anywhere you're born, you belong to them now. It used to be really weird to be like, hey, you were born in South Africa, so you're more South African than the South African. It was really weird. You wouldn't say that back then because obviously South African is who you're from. Or if you're Zulu, that's who you're from, right? If you're Yasal, that's who you're from, not where you are, but who you are, right? If you're Wampanoag, that's who you're from. If you're Haudenosaunee, that's who you're from. If you're Creek, that's who you're from. If you're Foot, that's who you're from, right? If you're Sioux, that's who you're from. If you're Jamaican, and not just Jamaican the island, Jamaican the people that went all up and down the east coast of America and even stretching to Canada somewhat. That wasn't where you were from, that was who you're from. If you're Aztec, that wasn't where you're from, that was who you're from. You could be an Aztec and visit Kemet, and guess what? If you were in Kemet, born in Kemet, you were still Aztec because who you're from always supersedes where you're from. It wasn't until the 14th Amendment that people started thinking, oh, so we can control people because of where they're born? And even think about the language that's used. It's artificial language. Your mother gives birth. She doesn't bear a child. You're not born. Like, you should have a born day, but you have a birthday. Why? Because you're birthed. But why are you birthed? You're a vessel lost at sea. The water broke. We saw the water, but we didn't see the vessel come. So when we didn't see the vessel come initially, we literally, they're using maritime law. They're saying you literally are lost at sea. We can't find you. Matter of fact, if I'm reporting something, people don't even get this. If I report something to you, it means that I was ported here in the system. I left. I found another port. I learned and I was fed and I grew there. I came back and now I'm reporting. I'm coming back to where you are and I'm bringing back some stuff, some knowledge, some valuable, some food, some things. Yeah, well, everybody is a slave. If you're in debt, if you were somebody who has to pay taxes, if you're somebody who's a non-citizen national, if you're somebody who keeps signing W-2, W-4, W-9, you don't have to sign those things. The 1099, you don't have to sign anything. Matter of fact, you should get a W-8-BEN. But once again, this is for educational purposes only. You got to be educated on how to use this, because if you're going to be sovereign in any way, shape, or form, sovereignty comes because of who gave it to you. Yeah, our sovereign status carries value, equals fortune. So when I'm talking about your money, you're having a problem with money because you don't even realize, like, you can live under the poverty line, but if you keep all your money because you don't get taxed, then you're doing pretty well. Watch this. Somebody who makes 40,000 a year, which by the way is, I think, a little above average for our diaspora specifically, right? But if you make 40,000 a year and the government going to take 20 to 15,000 or 20 to 25,000 of it, let's say that you only got 15,000 left. If you only got 15,000 left, you ain't gonna be doing that well this year. But let's say you make 20,000 and nobody can touch your pockets, because you know how law works and you've made sure that you've gotten all your stuff in order to live a specific manner where nobody can touch it. Well, 20,000 more than 15,000. You're doing better than somebody who's making 40. But in your mind, you think that the fortune is attached to what the government allows. This is why I asked the question. Well, once again, it's W-H-BEN, like the word, like Benjamin Franklin, or Benjamin in short, we would call him Ben, B-E-N. But once again, if you don't have your stuff in order, you can't ask for this. So anyways, going back to the 14th Amendment. So people think of themselves as 14th Amendment citizens now. Matter of fact, when you look at the Constitution, everything in the Constitution that mentions the word citizen is a capital C, right? It's a capital C up until you get to what? It's a capital C up until you get to the 14th Amendment, and then everything else is lowercase c. Up until then, they were willing to be like, yo, citizens actually carry rights. You actually got real rights out here. You're not an artificial person. Now, some people weren't even considered to be people. You got to see who's considered to be a person. This is why you might want to become a non-citizen national, especially depending on who you are and who you come from, because not everybody's considered to be the same. As much as we want to, and look, I'll be the first person to tell you, even though I believe color is real and you should love people for color as part of who they are, at the same time, it should not be an indicator to what you are. Just because you look like me doesn't mean that I should trust you. Just because you don't look like me doesn't mean that I should trust you either, right? And vice versa works for that, right? That being said, though, and all this stuff, people don't even realize when that happened. Then the 15th Amendment, they lie to you. And what do they say with the 15th Amendment? 15th Amendment, they lie to us. And they say what? They say, oh, yeah, everybody, all black people were allowed to vote. And as a brother, this kind of irritates me in two ways. Number one, you're lying, right? Because not all of us were allowed to vote. You would still mess us up, even though, yes, a lot of black people got voted into certain positions, but we're not going to act like all of us actually got to go to the polls correctly. But number two, this is something that we got to eat, as much as we don't want to take acknowledgement of this. But this is why your culture and your people must be recognized before somebody else's, right? What am I about to say? This is why you have to be careful, because, hear what I'm saying, get this. We as men don't even think about the fact that not all black people get to vote. Even if it was on paper. Let's say all black men could vote, but our sisters couldn't vote. Our wives couldn't vote. Our mothers couldn't vote. Our daughters couldn't vote. Why did we go ahead and say, let's vote? Because by then you were trying to act like your oppressor. Your oppressor said that women don't vote. So we'll make you feel like us, even though you ain't on the same level, but we'll make you feel like us. Go ahead, brothers. You can vote and you can do the same thing to your women that we do to ours. Where we come from, we would never have thought about such a thing. See what I'm saying? But now that you don't consider yourself to be what? Non-citizen nationals, or back then we would have called it freedmen. And your birth certificate now, which is a fake version of yourself, it's an artificial person. Your birth certificate, right? It's in all caps. Anything in all caps, according to common law that we started off with earlier, anything according to all caps. Back in England, they did this, and so they do the same thing. If you ever write your name out and it's not capital first letter for first name and then lowercase for the rest, and capital first letter for last name and then lowercase for the rest. If you don't write it out like that, that's not the real version of yourself. So any identification that you carry that has all caps on it is not the real you. Question now: when you look on any of your identification, from your birth certificate to your driver's license to a lot of your passports and all this stuff, does it have all caps or does it have your real name? The answer would be 99% of the time that it has all caps, which means that that's a fake version of yourself, which is why we started off with the question before people got irritated by it, but which is why we started off with the question, hey, what is a male or a female? Because if your birth certificate is all caps, it means that it is a fake version of a human being, which means that if it says it's a male on your birth certificate, it's a fake version of a male. And if it says a female on your birth certificate, it's a fake version of a female. And if it says it's a they or them, it's a fake version of they or them. Whichever way you want to go with it is not real, which means that you are already set up to never be fortunate, because fortune follows the real. Fortune is not fallacy. True fortune. Yeah, fake version can be anything they want it to be. Yep. And thanks for being being on with this, Felicia. And how you doing, West Lavender? Thanks for being part of the community. Right? Fortune is not fallacy. He said, which is why society doesn't. Which is we get a lot of. Sorry. Go ahead, keep on saying something. I'm just catching up. Which is why society doesn't know what and who they really are. Yeah. And they be in Congress, right? Or anybody who's part of the United States Corporation. What is the United States Corporation? Once again, what does United States Code say? 28, as we said this earlier, we said it several times alive, 28 USC 3002 15A. Go look for it. It says what? United States is a corporation. 28 USC 3002 15B, the United States is a board. That's why you have president, vice president, secretary, treasurers, a bunch of congressmen that have these very interesting titles. Go look them up. They're all board member titles, right? 28 USC 3002 15C tells you that it's what? Instrumentalization. It can be publicly traded. If you are a part of the corporation and you are a fictitious entity and you are being used as such, then guess what? Your birth certificate is worth at least, and this is years ago, it's probably up now. Everybody's birth certificate with at least 6-7 years ago was thought to be at least of an average of 6 million per, which means that you are publicly traded. When people say China's making money off you, sometimes they do that. Oh, we owe China some money. See, watch this. And I've said this before. See, I need you to comprehend fortune. I need you to comprehend how fortune works. You ready? You said, why are the letters behind the capital letter in our name lowercase? Well, that's a form of that's an English form coming from old ways to where now it's become common law. That's just the way that they indicate in their culture that, that's how you used to really write your name. And by the way, this goes back past England. You got to go back to the Druids, and you got to go back from there. Believe it or not, it actually has connection back to Canaan. Right, which means that when we were dealing with Canaanites back then, we were fighting for our freedom against this stuff back then. Who is the real you? Who's the fake you? Is it Mount Zion, or is it the mountain in which the spirit of Esau's on? Right, like this is not new. But see, we have become less fortunate because we don't even know how we work. See, I say this stuff all the time, but prayerfully it starts clicking more when we have more conversation about it. You are the ATM machine. Right? Literally, I am the ATM. Nobody can make money off of me without me. Even if they say it's a fake version of me, you got to have me somewhere. And so in order for them to really make a lot of fake money off of me, they have to do what? They have to actually have me be involved in the process. And this is when I become dangerous, right? When I realize that I have to be used in the process. If I refuse to be used, or watch this, I contract out how I might be used, I have power. This is why I'm prayed up. This is why I pray up for those of you who are taking this journey. Because now, like somebody said earlier, you are a real person. You are a natural person. That means that you are monstrous to the system by definition. And in all the monster movies, what do? You take monsters out. Thank you, Martin. I appreciate it. So I'm prayed up all the time. And I praise y'all that there's a lot of y'all to be looking out for me. Because they try to take monsters out. I'm a monster according to them. Because I'm real. And you become a monster to them when you live. That's why you got to get with community. See, this is one of the things that's even happened with sovereignty and happened with people who are Hebrew Israelites or whatever, more, whatever you want to call yourself. Everybody is so busy talking about their status, not realizing that if your status is really going to lead to your freedom and your prosperity, not prosperity as far as money, but prosperity meaning your ability to push through, then you must recognize that to the system, you are as a monster. So the only way that's going to work is that you as monsters, y'all got to come together. Because there's less monsters than there should be. Which means the government is coming looking. They're coming monster hunting. Are you ready? Are you so far gone? Are you 2,000 miles away to where I got your back? You say you need me to get that thing. I got that thing for him, but you 2,000 miles away. By the time I get that thing checked in at the airport and travel, right, and get over to where you are, it might be 3-4 hours too late. Sorry about that. Had something I got to take care of real quick. Sorry about that. I apologize, family. I had to take care of something real quick. Something popped up. Right. But yeah, you become monstrous to the system. This is why we have moderators working overtime, because we monsters to the system. TikTok is in the midst of trying to take us down still, but they can't ever take us down fully. And we created a system to where when it, see, this is why hashtag people used to ask, why do you always say hashtag find Kofi? Because now it's turned into 4 different TikTok channels, a whole bunch of Facebook channels, stuff on Twitter, IG, personal stuff, traveling, things like that. We turned it into a brand where the community could come around it, because obviously some people realize when they try to take you out or stuff like that, that you must have something of value to say. And if we're not breaking in community guidelines, we allowed it to be to where now when they do this stuff to us, more people come looking for us, right? We decided to become comfortable with what they called it. They called us monsters. We said, okay, we'll do that. You give them back their culture, their diet, their money, their religion, their education, and their meds, their music, etc. Yeah. How you doing, King Gal? If I didn't say so already. Right? Like, you got to ask yourself, are you ready? See, are you ready to if a police officer comes to your door, are you ready to ask, do you have a warrant? And if they try to break through and don't have a warrant, are you ready to make sure that everybody in the house is ready to protect themselves? Yes, I'm part Ghanaian, or what you would call Ghanaian. I mean, the original Ghana is not where Ghana is today, but what we would call Ghana today. Sure. Yep. That's where my name comes from. How you doing, Melissa? Thanks for being on. All right. I'm just saying, you have to have you have to be you have to be ready for these things. I'm sorry. Be back real quick. One more thing I have to take care of. Sorry, y'all. Just be real quick. Sorry about that. Okay. That should be the last time, unless I have a real big emergency. I'll leave that alone. Right. But we gotta realize what's going on. That'll be the last time, unless I have a real emergency or a real big emergency. I won't. I had to answer that real quick. The Holy Spirit said I had to answer that real quick, so I was obedient. How you doing, Macha? Thanks for being part of the community. So I'm just saying, when we're talking about fortune, our fortune is not even tied to us. We're not even thinking about us. We talked about this last night. Us first. Why is that wrong? When I say us first, people try to go into, see, you don't want anybody, you hate white people and blah. No, no, us first. That means that there can be a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. You said it's freezing now? It's frozen now? It's still frozen? Can you guys hear me? It's frozen right now? Can anybody hear me? It's frozen right now? Wow. Okay. I done jumped off too many times. Can anybody hear me on TikTok? Can you guys hear me on YouTube? Like I said, it's weird that TikTok is all over the place, but YouTube is Can y'all hear me on YouTube? Nobody can hear me. Nobody can see me. It's saying that we have a signal, so that means somebody blocking. Okay, let me try something. This is part of the stuff that goes through. Okay. Yep, y'all can hear from where you are. All right. This was happening to Minister Tamar on Wednesday a lot. Trying to come back loud and clear. Okay. All right. The same thing that's been happening. This happened several times a live session now. But once again, this is what we're talking about, right? So your fortune has to be tied to something greater than this stuff. Your voice has to be tied to something greater, right? And even your fortune is not going to be any greater than your brother or sister's fortune. Oh. Your fortune is not going to be tied to anything greater than your brother or sister's fortune. You hear what I'm saying? Thank you. My wife saw me out here scratching too much. Thank you, babe. So your fortune is going to be tied to something, you know, greater. And this is stuff that she makes as well too for people that are interested. Right. That's why I was saying I wasn't prepared, even without the shea butter. Should have made sure I had this stuff. Wasn't thinking. Right. But your fortune is tied to the fortune of those around you. Right. It's got to be tied to those that are around you. And we're not looking at this. Right. We're unfortunate when we're separated from each other, that is. See, I've talked about this word before, this word called integration. Do you know what the word integrate means? This is when you really lose people. We already lost some people. That was because the signal. Prayerfully they come back, but if not, so be it. But do you not know what the word integration means? To become part of something? Somewhat. To infuse? Kinda. To lose your identity? That happens because of what they say integration is, but that's not what the real word integration even means. And I'm not just talking about integration of black and white, although obviously we could say that that's a big history of what we comprehend, the context of the word integration. That's what we comprehended through that prism. But that's not even what I'm the word integrate. It comes from the same word, has the same root word as the word integrity. How you doing, Sister Melissa? See? So we have all these other terms for it. We hear integration, we go, oh, they talk about this, talking about that. But to integrate is talking about something different, right? To integrate, we're talking about integrity. Now, what is the word integrity? If something is integral to something, integral means it is becoming one. It means the same thing as to be holy, to become one, to be holy, holistic, come together, not be by yourself. How you doing, Mr. 252? Okay, that's great. Okay, cool. Right? It means to become one with something. That's what it means. So you have to ask yourself the question: when everybody integrated, was your culture made one with somebody else's, or did your culture have to be put to the side? I'm gonna ask that question again. When you integrated, did your culture get to become one with everybody, or did it get put to the side? Is it only used? It's put to the side, right? And then it's only used, as we talked about last night when we talked about us first. It's only really used or put up when somebody else gets to say that it's theirs. Even for those who are into the LGBTQ plus movement, right? Even if that's your thing, you must recognize that when people of color were out there saying that they were this, there was no movement for it. But now people of a certain diaspora are into it, and now we need a movement, right? Everybody in here had a, forgive my language, just for educational purposes only, but everybody had a gay cousin. Everybody had, and I'm not, some people take it offensive when I'm mentioning these things, but you say you're LGBTQ plus. I guess I'm not allowed to say it, but everybody had a gay cousin. Everybody, had you called it gay. You didn't even realize you're supposed to say lesbian back then, but everybody had a gay cousin, a gay uncle, a lesbian aunt. Even if you didn't know exactly what it was, you knew that when people said that's so and so's friend, you knew that was weird as a child, but they didn't tell you about it. Like it was like they didn't tell you exactly what it meant, but you knew. Okay, I guess this person does something different. Then you got older and you're like, oh, okay, they do something really different. Okay, all right, but that's still my uncle, that's still my aunt. I don't do that, but I still love them, right? They'll have you believe that means, because we don't fully support or whatever, that means that we don't love. No, like we still there. Like my uncle, if he needed something, he needed to go to the hospital. He needed to get his stuff done with dialysis. He needs somebody to check on him. He needs somebody to move something at the house because he's getting older. I'll just be like, oh, I'm sorry, uncle, because you live a different lifestyle. I'm not going to help you. You still help him. That's what you did. you know, like a lot of people grew up with that, especially in the States. Other countries, they were more, it's a lot less. Now it's starting to make its way to other countries as the West is trying to infiltrate. But, in the United States of America, a lot of people that are part of our diaspora grew up with something like that, and didn't realize what it fully was until we got to be older. It was something that you would never even introduce to a child because not because we hated the person, but because children weren't supposed to be hypersexualized. Like my son knows ultimately what his phallus will be used for when he gets married, but we don't sit there and talk about it all the time because you didn't talk to a child about that, right? Like that when you see people that are, and I'm not saying all trans people do this, I'm not saying that, but when you see certain trans people doing that and going to schools and twerking and doing stuff like that, look, if you're going to be a drag queen, there's a culture, there's a time for that. You don't need to teach the child about being a drag queen. And I'm not saying every trans person is a drag queen. That's not what I'm saying. Right? Somebody gonna try to act like that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like my wife said, the society is forcing the conversation, but we not. I'm not saying that every single one. There's a lot of trans people that say you shouldn't be twerking and doing stuff like that in the school system, but they do stuff like that. There's people that do, put on strip shows at schools. Don't look it up. There's 7-year-old and 11-year-old that were on Good Morning America years ago now, making sure that they were being applauded because they went to clubs and they would strip. This is stuff that we would have called 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We would have said that is PEDO, right? Like this, and then what they have us do is they say, right? They say that, hey, you're the problem. The majority of everybody on the planet believes in this, right? But once again, like my wife is saying, see, we're talking about fortune today. Your child has a mindset that's going to be unfortunate. If your child thinks that this is something that makes them fortunate within their community, or they start thinking this is more fortunate than you, what you have, what you offer, then they're going to break away, and they're not going to deal with what's is fortunate for you. Fortune is if you haven't gotten all of it together, let me just wrap it up and then kind of lead it back to this. Fortune is a lifestyle. How you doing, Minister Joseph? How you doing, Dimitri? Oh, you're from the Netherlands. All right, praise y'all. Thank you for being on. Right. Fortune is something that's a birthright. I said that earlier, but I didn't really get into it. Let me mention it again, and let's go a little deeper into this. Your fortune is a birthright. How you doing, Sister D? Your fortune is a birthright or a born right. I was born. I'm fortunate enough to be born, Shwe. I'm fortunate enough to be born, Yashta, and I'm fortunate to be born with everything that means I'm entitled to. Some people say you have too much entitlement. I would say that a lot of us don't have any entitlement. We don't have enough. If he is the King of Kings, then that makes me a king. What am I entitled to as a king? This is why I say all the time. See, you're having a problem with fortune because even the way you use your money is based off of common sense. But you are not a commoner, right? Why would you be royalty and think like a commoner? I didn't say that you shouldn't empathize with a commoner, but you are royalty. You do not think like a commoner. So why is there common sense in your community? It's common sense. No, there's some things that don't need to be common. This is why even when you get into their version of common law and even what other people try to teach you about common law, there's things that are common to them but aren't common to us. I need to comprehend what you mean when you say common law, but that's not common to me. And thank you for the love. Appreciate it. Is that P Love 4860? Thanks for being on with us today. Yeah, it's okay for us to be the standard. First of all, if you really want to get into scripture, you're supposed to be the standard for everybody. But if you don't want to go ahead and go there, at least it's okay for you to be a standard for yourself. If anybody's going to teach my child, it's going to be me. If anybody's going to tell them what prosperity is, it's going to be me. If anybody's going to make sure that they live on land, it's going to be me. I'm not looking for the person who thinks like a commoner or the person who's trying to demean me and treat me like a commoner and tell me that I'm not sovereign. See, because kings and queens, they are sovereign. Guess what makes you sovereign? You are sovereign because you are given sovereign territory or sovereign, some of y'all would call it colonies. And the only reason you are able to be sovereign over a colony is because that you are sovereign under a sovereign. Here's a scripture for you. Here's a scripture for you. You ready? Right? Even though some of you don't like scripture, but here's a scripture for you that'll help you. Read your Bible. It'll bless you. Make sure you get the context. I need you to heal my servant. My servant, he's my friend. He's an Israelite like you, and I need you to heal him. I've heard of you. I don't really know who you are like that, but my friend who swears on you says that you can be able to help him. Yahshua says, no problem. Take me to your friend. He says, no, 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 no. He says, look, I'm not one of you. He says, I'm not even worthy. He says, I'm not even worthy for you to step foot into my house. He says, I'm not even worthy of you to do that. He says, but I comprehend sovereignty. He says, I comprehend authority. We're freezing again. I don't know what to do. We're freezing again. It says that we have signal. Okay, I don't know what to do. Yo, hold on. We're freezing again today. Okay. I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be better. This is the one I usually start off with. And when we start off with this, you guys normally tell me this one doesn't work. I don't know if it's working or not. I don't know if I'm going to keep switching back and forth between signals. I'm going to keep turning the app off and coming back on. I don't know. The screen is still frozen. Can anybody hear me? The screen is still frozen. Can anybody hear me on TikTok? I guess not. You're great now? Okay. So I guess I'm going to have to just keep switching back and forth and closing and coming back in. And okay, it is what it is. Praise y'all. Right? Where were we even at? Oh, so here's a scripture for you. Here's a scripture for you. You got too many mosquitoes out here. Ugh. Okay. So where was I at? So, where were we at? Okay. So I have my friend. He's Israel like you are. I need him to be healed. Yeshua says, no problem. Let's go heal him. You ready? He says, hold up. I'm not worthy for you to even step foot in my house. He says, I'm not even worthy of you to come up in my house. He says, however, I know how sovereignty works, or what we would call authority. He says, I'm a man of authority because I'm a man under authority. He says, the same way that Caesar makes a decree, he doesn't have to be where I am, but if he decrees something, it must be established. And if I make sure that it's established where I am, then I have authority because I make sure that whatever the one who has authorized me, He has whatever he wants to be established. He said, so the same way that Caesar establishes something through the one he's authorized is the same way that I just need you to speak a word, right? To the servant that's not even here. But because he is part of this nation, right? And he wants to establish what you want to establish. If you would just simply speak it, it will happen, however you say. Right? And he says, wow. He said, and this is what he said. This is the greatest, as far as Yehoshua talking about somebody's faith. For me personally, right? Let me just say, for me personally, I look at this as maybe even the greatest thing that he says as far as somebody's faith. He says, I have not seen such faith, even in all of Israel. He said, I have never seen anybody with this type of faith, even in all of Israel, even in my people, even in my nation. They don't get it. They don't recognize how this works. How you doing, Kristen? They don't see it. They don't get how this works. That literally, that their fortunes change because of their connection to me. He said that I've dealt with a lot of people. They don't even get it. They don't comprehend it. They definitely do not understand or stand under this. That if they really recognize who I was, if they would simply be in tune with it, then their fortune has changed. And then he says, whatever you ask for is yours, because you want my will to be established. Since that's what you asking for, basically you asking for my will to be established. And next thing you know, that prescription that you said he wrote is taken care of. Says the same hour he was talking to him, the same time frame he was talking to him, it was done. Now, when we talk about your fortune, this is the way it works. What is watch this. I said this earlier, right? Talking about how they take money from you. Have you ever found it strange? And I know obviously they're technically by law or what's legal, they're not supposed to do this with just $1, but I'm just giving an example. Have you ever thought about the fact that you can get $1? You can have $1, right? Which means that the government, you probably made $2. The government kept $1. So they keep $1, you get $1. You worked for it. You toiled for it, right? But it's yours. Or it's not yours. You toil for it, but you got to work twice as hard to get half as much. Just like what we say about ourselves, isn't it? It's the same thing. You got to work twice as hard to get half as much. So you work twice as hard, the government gets half of what you did. All right. Out of that, then the government says, okay, what you got left over. But let's say I want to give this as a gift. I want to give this $1 to somebody else. So I'm gonna give it to somebody else. But the government says, oh, okay, no problem. But we're gonna keep some of that too. So let's say I'm gonna give 50 cents out of the $1 that I made. I'm gonna give that as a gift to Leslie. This government says, okay, cool. We need some of that though. So Leslie doesn't get 50 cents. She gets like 40, let's say 35 cents. Leslie says, okay, I want to take 35 cents and I'm gonna go ahead and use this to go to the store and buy some food. The store says, well, we would let you just buy it, but and it would be 30 cents, but we got to tax you. Actually, we got to tax you 5 more cents. So we can take you 35 cents. The store has 35 cents now. The store says, in order for us to run, we got to give the government this, that, or whatever. Right? At some point, do we not realize what's going on? Like, we don't even realize the necessity of getting our stuff together where you cannot be taxed. People will have you see. This is why you got to stop being Republican or Democrat. Both sides are jacked up, right? This is why you got to stop being Republican or Democrat. Everybody was mad at Trump because he didn't pay taxes. When you should be upset with the fact that you pay taxes. Trump doesn't even know what's going on. Because the fact that he paid any taxes, that's problematic. People in Trump's position, they actually like to pay taxes because they end up getting paid money back, right? They end up with the government owing them. If anything, y'all should have been upset. How is it that Trump paid taxes? You should have been mad at Trump and at his people. How you gonna be? Y'all should have been calling Trump up and saying, "Look, I don't like your politics, but you getting robbed blind, bro." Right? Like, but you don't want to do that. Why? Because you hate Trump. Because Trump's a Republican and you're a Democrat or whatever, or Trump's evil. He's KKK and you're not. Like, it's bigger than that. If you can come out of that thought process, it's bigger than that. We're not going to hit fortune because you don't recognize how the community rolls is how you roll. In your community, watch this. In your community, whoever's making the most, y'all should be supporting them. And when you support them, they should make sure that they turn around and supporting y'all. In our communities, when you had food that was set up, it would be you would have a whole field of food, and the outskirts of it, the 10% outside of it, people would come and they would just take food that they needed. So if one person had, everybody had. If you still got 90% of the food that you grew and you can feed a whole community with the food, obviously you're not lacking. That used to be part of what we did. We don't even grow our own food now. We don't even have our own storage container. I'm trying to get something started now to where we can start the clothes stuff that that my wife is starting, everything like that, and giving people clothes and things. I'm starting to trying to get stuff started where people could do that in their own community. People are saying all the time, Pastor Kofi, I really like to send you clothes and stuff, but it takes too much money to be able to send a bunch of clothes. Maybe I can just send you the money, and I say, well, why can't we just build something up in your area? Those are in the Carolinas. Y'all could start giving people clothes. Every first Friday, we're supposed to give to everybody in our community, anyways, right? Next week, we're supposed to give to no. That's the last Friday. So the Friday after. But whenever the first Friday of July is, we all try every first Friday of each month to make sure we go out. Y'all could get together, put clothes together. Storage container don't cost. All you need is a small one. Get a small storage container to start up. Spend $50 as a community. If there's 10 of y'all in the same place, $5 a piece ain't bad. But we think that we have to do it through something else or some means or whatever, right? Why can't we do this ourselves? Why do we have to wait for somebody else to give us reparations? It's not coming, by the way. And if it does, it's not real reparations, because once again, reparations are given to nations. You keep talking about you're an African American. What nation is that? There are people who call themselves black, but in the West, black is not considered to be a real person. So when you call yourself black on paper here, what nation is that? They're not giving you real reparations, because you can't give reparations to people that aren't a people. You can't give reparations to persons. You have to give reparations to people. People means nation. Japan gets reparations. Why? Because they're considered to be a people. Jews get reparations. Why? Because they're considered to be a people. Right? Rich Americans get reparations. Why? Because they're considered to be a people. You don't know the definition of reparations. So when I say reparations, you're like, well, who are you talking about? Prisons, when they don't get enough prisoners, a state has to pay a penalty to the prisons because they didn't make sure they got enough slaves. Reparations. Because in a corporative sense, in a false sense, they're a nation. And in a real sense, when they wrote the Constitution was written for rich white landowning males, which is why when they had the first vote, 6% of the country could vote. You had to be rich white landowning males. And even out of those 6%, not all of them got to vote. Reparations. Before Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, he paid Marylanders reparations. Because if you're not going to be able to have slaves, that means you're not going to be able to make money. So we got to give you the money so you can go ahead and give up the slaves, right? But we're talking about reparations. You have no nation. Once again, everybody's so busy talking about status, but nobody's coming together. If it takes a village to raise a child, why is everybody talking about how hard it is to raise their children on their own? Uh-oh. That's what I hear all the time from my brothers and sisters. It's hard raising these babies out here on your own. Why are you raising them on your own? Well, I can't do this, and there's no way I could do that. Question: when you move from that state to that state, watch this. Do you know many people they move because they ain't got nothing? And thank you for the love, appreciate it. Have you ever thought about that? Like we always act like people move, but people usually move for what? Better opportunity, got a job. Don't know what I'm gonna do when I get over here, but it's gonna be better. Maybe I'll live with my family for a little bit. But somebody says, let's come together. And everybody acts like this is a foreign, I'm speaking a foreign language. Or people like to hear you say it, but then when you say, let's hold people accountable to it, oh no, I don't want that. I'm just saying, right? Well, I don't, hold me accountable. I don't know about all that. Kofi. Everything cool, but now you're asking me to actually do something. I don't know. You asking me to actually go out there and give people stuff. I don't know. You're asking for me to actually not try and like be in people's DMs and stuff. I don't know. You asking for me to not actually like ask for people to like, for me to actually be faithful to my spouse. I don't know about that. You asking for me to actually forgive people and love my enemy. I don't know about all. It was okay when you were just saying some of this stuff, but now you're actually looking for me to do it. I don't know. So it's like when everybody wants a job, but no one wants to do the work for the job they asked for. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, a lot of people, Kofi, I was with you up until you started saying I've got to be held responsible for some stuff. I don't do all that. This is why a lot of people be all in their feelings in their marriages. My mama don't even tell me that. Well, you ain't married to your mama. What do you expect in fortune? And by the way, maybe your mama should have told you all that. Maybe she should have held you accountable for that. Maybe your daddy should have told you that. My daddy's never even told me to watch my mouth. Maybe he should have. Uh-oh. People get mad when you talk like that. I was talking to the Holy Spirit. I was telling her earlier, I was saying they're not gonna want to listen to this. When you start really getting to the nitty-gritty, people click off when you start getting into certain things. And hey, how you doing, Sister Latoya, if I didn't say so already earlier? For Yah I live and for Yah I die. Okay, now you ain't got no money. You still living for him? Yeah. Your boy hurting financially, been hurting for a little bit. I don't put it out there like that or whatever, but yeah, I go through ups and downs and ebbs and flows too. Because I work for y'all. I told y'all this. I'm not asking for you to rush and send nothing. I'm just being honest. I go through ebbs and flows too. And I be sitting there sometimes like, I don't know how this gonna work. I go through that too. And thank you for the love. And once again, I'm not trying to get everybody just rush and rush and rush. I'm just trying to tell you, I know what it is to not know, when you do something like this and you're literally living off of donations, you don't know what's gonna come next. I have faith in certain things, but I have certain principles set up. I don't have to worry about taxes coming. I don't have to worry about certain things because I'm not part of the system. Some of you, even when I say stuff to you, you don't believe me. But for example, for your fortune's sake, Yah tells you that if my people who were called by my name, implying that at some point you're gonna have to start even changing your name, right? But some people don't know this. You think that this is just random. You think this is look, you don't have to use your birth certificate name, at least definitely not your birth certificate name in all caps, but you don't have to use that. You don't have to give up any of that information. They ask you to give that stuff up, but you don't have to give up a thing. You don't have to identify as that. Did you when your parent, no offense. I'm just trying to see. I don't know if people even gonna follow where I'm going now. When your parents named you, did they know who they were? Amen. We hold each other up. Yeah, he always see us through. Question for you, right? Can you change your name on your passport? We have to do some stuff before that first, probably. But even if that's what's on your passport, you don't have to use that name, except for when you travel. You don't have to use like just because somebody called you that. Somebody say, "Oh, you trying to use something that's not your name." Who says it's not your name? Now be led by the Holy Spirit and everything, right? Study this stuff to see what I'm saying. But do you not realize there are people who had name changes even in your Bible? Y'all love Peter, even though that's not really his Hebrew name, but let's go off what we know him by. Y'all love Peter. Well, Peter was not Peter the whole time. Peter was Simon at first. Simon meant he was leafy. He blew as the wind blew. When Yeshua spoke to who he really was, he called him Peter, right? So when he said Simon to him, he was saying, hey, you out of control, you out of pocket. That's who you used to be. But when he said Peter, he said Peter is Petros, a small stone. It means you're solid. Amen, baby. Yeah, the community allows us to flow and stuff like that. And we try to give back what we can, and we try to travel, we try to meet needs, we try to teach, we try to even give as much as we can. Right. So I'm just saying, like, a lot of people don't even identify. There's a lot of people born don't even like their names. I'm not even saying everybody don't like. I'm just saying there's some. But I'm saying if my people who are called by my name, what is your name? What does it even mean? What is, because the word name means authority. What are you authorized to be? Paul wasn't always Paul. At first he was Saul. Then he became Paul. Yashrael wasn't always Yashrael. He was first Jacob. Or Israel wasn't always Israel. He was Jacob. Jacob means trickster. He came into something that was supposed to be something to help everybody on the planet. You can't be have a trickster spirit. So guess what? He got a new name. You'll now be Israel. And a lot of us deal with that trickster spirit and have never gone from the trickster spirit to the what? We've never gone from the trickster spirit over to Yasrael. Now, Israel or Yasrael literally means Yah. If you were to look at it, it's Yah Shara'al, right? Literally, the hand of Yah taking us, making sure that we're protected from destruction because Yah is our head, and therefore what? And since he's our head, he is our shepherd. Yashara'al. A lot of people try to tell you Israel and ISIS, and I forget the pastor's name. He actually has a lot of great stuff that he said, but the pastor's name that kind of started making it more popular again. ISIS, Ra is the head, and then Al is talking about, over the earth or God or whatever. But that's not even what it is in the culture. Yashara'al. Yashara'al. Yeah, that's who you are. Right? He had to change it from Yakab. Yakab means trickster. Yakab is, yeah, there's a hand leading you, right? And but you got things in your own hands, and you messing up your family. You're a trickster. And it messes up the family. You got to go from that to Yashara'al, that Yah is the one who protects us from destruction because he is our head, and therefore he makes sure that we are being shepherded correctly. See, a name change might be appropriate for you. That's why a lot of people, when they write books, they make a lot of money when they write books that are not even in their name. Anyways, I don't know. That might be a little off-putting for some. That might not be. You guys might not think I'm going down the right path because I know we're supposed to be talking about fortune, but I'm trying to get you to see fortune starts with a mindset. All these people will say stuff like, "Money, come to me." Preachers be talking. What's the name? Kenneth Copeland. Money, come to me. Money is mine. All these affirmations. I am money. I am gold. I am this. Faith without works is dead. What's your works? Beloved, Davad, right? Right. In Hebrew language, is there even is there an E sound? Is there an I sound? Is there an A sound? Is there a U sound? Is there an O sound? No. See, I'm talking about culture. See, you have something on you that goes back to Adam, a language. You have a language, right? People don't be believing this until you show it to them. See, this is your fortune is tied to your family, who you come from. How you doing, Sister Helen? You are fortunate to know who you are. Hear what I'm saying? Watch this. The language that Israel speaks is because it's the language that Isaac spoke. The language that Isaac speaks is because of the language that Abraham spoke. The language that Abraham speaks is because the language that Terah speaks. The Terah language that he speaks is because of what ultimately what Avra, or who you call Hebrew, speaks. Right? I'm sorry, Pelag speaks. Pelag speaks the language of his father, named Avra, or Hebrew. Go back a few generations, and you'll see that Avra speaks the same language as one of his fathers, called Shemitic language. Shem speaks the language that his father spoke, which is who? Na'ah, or Noah. Noah speaks the language that his father spoke, who is who? Lamech. Lamech speaks the language that his father spoke, who is who? Methuselah, who, by the way, also preached and taught Noah specifically. Methuselah, who was the second king of the planet at the time, the second king of the planet was the son of who? Spoke the same language as his father, Enoch. The same language that Enoch spoke would be the language that Enos spoke. The same language that Enos spoke would be the language that Canaan spoke. The language that Canaan spoke would be the language that Seth spoke. The language that Seth spoke would be the language that Adam spoke. The language that Adam spoke would be the language that Ravak Hakodah spoke. Because when your Bible declares that that Adam walked with the or spoke to the Most High in the cool of the day, when you look up that word "cool," it talks about the Spirit. It was the Holy Spirit that spoke with Adam. So Adam didn't even speak to the Holy Spirit unless he was speaking a specific language. Now, am I saying the Holy Spirit obviously can't translate your language? Of course, that's not true, right? Romans chapter 8, verses 23 to 26 tells us otherwise. But let's not get it twisted. There's an original language that's a heavenly language, and you are so busy talking about everybody else's culture. There is no animal blood sacrifice because Yahashua HaMashiach sacrifice for remission of sin. Yep, even though technically you could do an animal blood sacrifice. There's nothing that says you can't do one. Problem is first of all, you don't know how to do one, if we be honest. Secondly, let's be honest, you don't need to do it. But it's not unlawful. Like we could build an altar. We might do one when we meet up in Georgia. I'm not sure, but you could build an altar. There's nothing wrong with building an altar. But y'all don't even know how to build altars, right? You could do it the way the church says do it. You think they say come to the altar, and you come to this thing that's made by human hands. That altar is not supposed to be made by human hands. You can take stones and kindling and wood and all types of stuff and water and dirt, and you can bring it together, but you're not supposed to shape any of it with your hands. So even if you were going to make an altar, many people don't even know what an altar is. You know what an alternative is, but you don't know what an altar is. And thank you for the love. Appreciate it. How you doing, Kristen? You said, well, we only did that after Noah's days, correct? Which part? As far as sacrifice? Sacrifices were done all the time. I mean, the altar was made for Abel and for Cain, right? Cain was supposed to put, something on the altar, and he put fruit on there, fruit and vegetables. At least so we think. We had something that wasn't something that's plant life he put on there. And it wasn't the best that he gave either, right? Right. Matter of fact, the first sacrifice wasn't even done by Adam. Who was the first sacrifice done by? See, and this is stuff that you got to start thinking about as far as your what we call prosperity, your ability to push through these things, your fortune. Who did the first sacrifice? Yep, Yahweh. You said, why do we need animals after he did it? I just said we don't need animals after he did it, right? I said that you could, because there's no law that says you can't use animal sacrifice after he did it. There's no decree that anybody said that says that you can't make an animal sacrifice. It just says you don't need to do one. What's the point of it when Yahashua has already made a sacrifice? You could go through it and be obedient and do it for certain reasons. If you want to be able to try and get a connection point or something like that, you can, but why? You could build an altar. There's nothing wrong with building an altar. Matter of fact, altars are talked about in Revelation. If altars can be built in heaven, why can't they be built on earth? Do you have to build an altar to put an animal sacrifice? Matter of fact, an altar doesn't have to, altars can exist without animal sacrifices on them, but obviously their intent is for the animal sacrifice. Yeah, everything done in the heavenly temple first. So now you do it inside. So, and by the way, that was always supposed to be the decree. That the only reason why sacrifice was necessary, and why even Yahushua's sacrifice was necessary, any sacrifice has only been necessary to cover your sin. So now Yahushua's sacrifice is there, right? And the veil was rent, and you don't need to go to somebody else to do an offering, right? So you become a living sacrifice. That is the offering. When you repent, you sacrifice yourself. So you can become alive. But yeah, it says that Yahweh, he did the first sacrifice. And is it not interesting that we don't sacrifice? Somebody says, I'll give what I feel like. I give what I can. I'll give the minutes I feel like. I'll give the energy I feel like. How you doing, Charles? I'll give the time I feel like. I'll give the children when I feel like it. I'll give to my husband when I feel like, I'll give to my wife when I feel like it. You are out of order. When it comes to the beast, when it comes to the government, do you pay taxes when you feel like it? I mean, some do, right? Yeah, we don't want to sacrifice. We don't want discipline. David said, I will, he said, I will not give an offering to Yahweh, to Adon, unless what? Unless it costs me something. If it doesn't cost me something, it's not a sacrifice. People don't want to talk about it, but that's real. If it doesn't cost me something, it's not a sacrifice. I know you don't want to hear that, but that's real. If it doesn't cost me something, if it is not a sacrifice, it's going to cost me some time to be a teacher. The person who was on here earlier, I don't know if they're still on here or not, they got muted for a few minutes. But the person who was on here earlier talking about everybody wants to be a teacher, right? I don't think somebody recognizes, like, my whole life I've been teaching. I've been out on the road doing this since I was 4. Just because people listen to me now doesn't mean that it didn't cost me something. It cost me many years. It cost me being looked at. It cost me a lot of people that that at one point we used to worship with and all that stuff. I can't worship with them anymore. It costs you something to stand on principles, to stand on faith. It costs. It costs a lot. I mean, right now you can see I'm spraying myself. Do this with y'all cost me getting bit up by mosquitoes. Just joking, right? But I'm just saying it costs you something. And that's just the offering. Watch this. In the world, you gonna go to work. Some of you are gonna go to your job, not your work. You can go to your job today. How you doing, Marky? You're gonna go to your job today, and you are okay with half of your paycheck gonna be gone. You know you're not working for your whole paycheck. You're working for half of it. You start doing the math in your head. Okay, I get paid $20 an hour. Um, if I work 10 hours, that's 200. If I work 40 hours, that's going to be 800. Okay, cool. That means at the end of the week, I take home 400. You already start calculating. You already like, all right, I already know. Yah says, give me the first 10, keep the 90. And he says, be ye holy as I am holy. If I ask you for the first 10, I want to teach you how to live off of the next 10. If you, before you give to anybody else, give, and he didn't even say give it to me necessarily. He says, bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, into a storage place, that there might be meat for my house, for my family. You said you have a great question. You have a question. Did Joseph sleep with Mary? Yeah, he did after Yahshua was born. Right, right. But think about it. Right. He says, bring you all the tithes so that there can be meat in the house. You're not bringing it to him just so he can keep everything. He said, bring it to me because I need to have y'all have something saved up for your community. This is fortune. Why are we not fortunate? When's the last time that you made sure that everybody in your community, we're talking about membership now. Now, once again, I'm not forcing anybody. I don't believe that I have to force anybody, but we talking about membership. We got to be honest about it, right? Like, is your membership, is your group that you're part of, is the group you're committed to, are they floundering partially? Like, look, is there mismanagement of funds a lot? Yes. I'll be the first to admit it, right? There is mismanagement of funds a lot. People need to learn how to take care of their fortune. But first things first, a lot of people don't even have fortune. You said you used to only make 600 every 2 weeks and still bought Bibles for people and help people. Yeah. Yeah. And if we be honest with it, there have been statistics and studies shown in and outside of churches, right? For those who wanted to be like, oh, this is just the world, or this is just people that don't read the Bible, whatever, right? More people will tithe or give to things that they believe in who are poor than people who have money. Can we keep it 100? More people who make money don't give anybody anything. More people who don't make money give almost everything. Now there needs to be some balance in that, right? But the biblical principle is, if Yah, whatever Yah does, you should be doing the same thing. Yah says, I need 10% for me. That means that the next 10% should go to you. Excuse me. You said that's why they're rich? No, not necessarily. They're rich because of principles. It doesn't mean nobody who's rich gives money, by the way. That doesn't make sense. Right? For example, right? Rich people, even when they give, let's be honest about it. Rich people, even when they give with purpose. I don't necessarily even believe in the way they always give, but see, they have certain principles that they do. Fortune 500 companies. We talking about Fortune. Let's talk about Fortune 500 companies. Fortune 500 companies. You know they all tithe, right? Yeah, like my wife's saying, right? They all tithe. You know that. Maybe not all. I can't say all, right? But I can. If you do some research on Fortune 500 companies, they all give at least 10% of what they make. Now they give it with a principle. The principle is what? Especially most of them are trying to give the 501c3s. Why? Because the government allows the 501c3s certain liberties and also can control certain places. But the exchange is if you give up some of your stuff to us as far as control, we'll allow you to get stuff tax free. And if people give to your organizations, we'll also say that their money shall be returned on their taxes. You said Joel Osteen robbed y'all. He ain't robbed me. I don't give to Joel Osteen. But I guess if that's your if that's your thing of coming on here, Joel Osteen robbed y'all. He ain't robbed me. Maybe he robbed you. I don't know. Did you give to him and you upset with him? I know who Joel Osteen is and what he's about. Why would I give to him? He's not one of our priests. He's not a Levite to me. But okay. I mean, if that's what we're doing. So because Joel Osteen, who's not one of us, did something bad to us, and therefore anybody who gives to one of us, like they give to Joel Osteen, they must be bad. I mean, if that's the thought process, I guess, but that's not fortunate. That's not how we deal with fortune. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not my identity with fortune. I don't identify with Joel Osteen. All these people talking about identity politics, fine. I don't identify with that. He's not us. You said up. Oh, here we go. So start asking questions. Exodus 21 permits slavery, and moderators, I always bow down to y'all, but I'm asking just a little leeway. If it needs to be nipped in the bud, y'all do what y'all do, right? I'm just asking, right? Y'all got to be prayerful, and I'll let y'all be led by the Holy Spirit, right? I'm not in charge of that. Y'all are. I would say this: the word slave is not even something that is in our vocabulary. You said, oh, no, I'm trying to make sure you can stay on. So just, I'm your friend here as much as you try to act like we need to be enemies, right? We should agree on certain things as quickly as possible. So when you talk about this word slave, where does that word come from? And when you're talking about us, we're talking about indentured servitude. That stuff is real. And there are people that abuse stuff just like people abuse law today, right? Right? So watch this. The word slave, it doesn't even exist when you're talking about when the Bible exists. Now, if you're talking about the English version, well, yeah, people change that all the time. But look up the Avda, or what you would call Hebrew term, the original term for slave, right? Slave. Nowadays, people would talk about slave means contract, but slave, if you want to even use modern terminology, slave is anybody that's in debt. That's why if you pay taxes, by definition, you're a slave. Or if you go to prison, you have to pay your debt to society. Why? Because you're a slave. 13th Amendment says that if you're arrested, right, it's not about your color anymore, but if you're arrested, you're allowed to be a slave. You said I'm being disingenuous? No, I don't think that you know the culture of it. I think you're just talking about something randomly, and you're not willing to have somebody who actually is from the places you're talking about, and whose people actually are in this, and who actually has read original documents and knows what the words mean, can actually interpret it for you correctly rather than going off of misinterpretation. Because interpretation by law means we have to go off of the culture, the people who wrote it, what their will was, what language they spoke, what they meant, directly from it. Then we can talk about the constructs, and you're getting into constructs of it rather than talk about the foundation of it, right? And then you got muted, right? So that's why I was saying, be careful about it. But once again, maybe you're listening, and you can contact me. We can have dialogue about it. I'm not afraid of this, right? So we can talk about this one on one if you really want to. It sounds like you want to be more right than righteous. So if you want to win the argument, you've won. I could care less about that. Now that that's been said, though, you can't talk about this stuff without, if you're going to talk about slavery, you got to talk about indentured servitude. The word slave didn't even exist. We left Kemet, and you had a lot of Kemetic people that left as well, and a lot of people who had been enslaved for hundreds of years. If you leave those places and you have that mindset going, a lot of people might start treating each other like slaves, right? Just like a lot of people were freed from many different types of slavery, forms of slavery all over the world, and start treating each other like what they came out of. Therefore, what do we do when we come out of it? You have laws in place that actually speak against it. Now, these words slaves, why don't we talk about stuff that you're not bringing up? Why don't you talk about the slave Bible? where that word slave is really going to be introduced heavily. Why aren't you talking about when the 1611 King James version is written? That word slave in there doesn't even necessarily mean what you think it means, because you could be talking about serfdom, you could be talking about slavery, you could be talking about a freed person who's decided to work in a certain place to where it's talking about that. But that word Slav aren't even a people. Slav is where you're getting this word slave from, anyways. So if you're going to talk about this, why don't you talk about the fact that it says a lot of stuff in there as far as how to treat what you call your slave, but they wouldn't have used that word. We don't have a word for that, right? It would talk about how to treat your indentured servant. Now, and even in treating your indentured servant, even in the contracts that you had, if somebody became my indentured servant, I had to take care of them. At some point, they might be able to marry into my family. I had to take care of their house and make sure that when they went back to their house, or whoever in their family was still living there was taken care of according. Right, I had to do all. I would have to do all those things. Be responsible for their education. I would have to teach them what I do. They would become. They would actually call me their master, but master is like rabbi or even teacher. So when somebody says master, they're saying teacher. I would have to teach them. This is why you have the prince. You have the thing that says that there was a master who left, and one servant was given 5 talents. That's two. That's 1,000 pounds of gold. One servant was given 4 talents. That's 400 pounds of gold. One servant was given 1 talent. That's one or 200 pounds of gold, right? And the first two doubled up. The one that had 1,000 ended up with a ton. The one that had 400 ended up with 800. The one that had 200 ended up just trying to bury it, and he kept the 200. When the first one doubled up, the master said, "Well done. You've been faithful over a few things. 1,000 pounds of gold, yeah, I have more than you, but you use the principles I taught you. You were faithful over a few things. I'll make you rulers over many. Keep all of it. It's yours now. You got a ton of gold. Go out there, do what you need to do." That's what we did. That's what a master did. Now, the slave masters that y'all are coming from, and the mindset that you're arguing against or arguing for, trying to say it's the same thing, that's a whole different mindset, right? A master bedroom in our culture is talking about a place where you would literally had somebody that you might have had in our culture. Sometimes you couldn't sleep with your wife because if she was on her period. So guess what? She had her own bedroom, and you had your own bedroom. The children had their own bedroom. The servants had their own bedroom, depending on how much money one makes, obviously, right? And so there were times where she wasn't allowed in your bedroom. This whole thing of everybody had to go outside, that's not a very great cultural reference point. All the women had to go outside to go to another house. If you had enough money, you were supposed to make sure if you prepared a place for your wife, that also means you prepared a bedroom for her. But we don't know the culture. So you're having a conversation. So when you talk about a master bedroom for us, you're not talking about where the slave master was. You're talking about where the teacher or the master of the house was. That's what a teacher is. If you get a master's degree, watch this, bachelor's degree. What's that supposed to be for? Or a baccalaureate. But we call it bachelors. Why? Because eligible bachelors were the ones getting degrees. Their families would pay for the degree. They didn't even really go to school like that. If you really wanted to become something, though, you might get a master's degree. You would learn how to teach what the system says. If you went up to a doctorate degree, you were somebody who actually doctored or wrote out what the masters, the teachers would teach to ensure that what? That the bachelors, the men who were coming up, would be able to be schooled correctly. And now those who are associates of those people get associate's degrees, and they work as associates. And you have people who are what? Who are secondary in secondary schools. You call them high schools. And now you have something called what? Junior high schools. You're on your way to becoming secondary to the people who are associates, who to the people who are the bachelors out here running stuff, who are the ones who are working underneath the real teachers, the masters, who are working under the people who actually authorize the stuff, the doctors, who are really under the people who are running the corporations. Oh, and if we want to go back past that for those people who are in middle school or the juniors, then let's not forget that the juniors underneath them, they are actually just learning elementary things, right? Why would I want my child's fortune tied to that? See, this is why, once again, I get to be in my culture, I get to be the person that says, this is how we roll. You said your grandfather and grandmother had their own bedroom. Yeah, that was, by the way, like that was that not a thing? Y'all saw that on TV. Not only maybe they didn't have their own bedroom, but you would see people with two separate beds. Now I get it. Part of that was because they wanted to make sure on television that children weren't seeing people in the bed because they didn't want people. It was a morality thing. I think it was super, like I think it was extra. It'd be really extra. But also part of it was because it was all right for people to have a different place where they were. It's a cultural thing. It was a cultural thing. It was shocking when you got to a certain time and you started seeing, male and men and women in bed. Matter of fact, in a lot of the different shows, you never even saw the bedroom. Even in some of the shows that you would say that was wild in there, but you still wouldn't see the bedroom. Y'all barely ever saw the bedroom in Martin. You ever think about that? It was wild. They actually brought you into the bedroom on the for the Cosby Show for the Huxtables. They brought you into the bedroom. That was something that was like special. You didn't do that. Family Matters. How often did you see? You saw Laura's bedroom a couple times, I think. How often did you see Carl and is it Harriet bedroom? How often on the Fresh Prince of Bel Air did you see the bedroom there for Uncle Phil and for Aunt Vivian? This is a cultural. It was something that like now everybody's out here, but and I'm not saying everybody should separate bedrooms. I'm just saying it was something that it was a normalcy. What happens in the bedroom is sacred. See, once again, the mindset of fortune. How are we going to have fortune that comes into our families and the husband and the wife aren't even in the right mindset? They showed it a couple times, yeah, but I'm saying how often. And one of the times was when they were making fun of Gina's head, right? Supposedly Martin and Gina were having sex or whatever, and her head was supposed to be. Right? Y'all remember that episode or whatever? Martin and Gina supposed to be having sex in the bedroom, and supposedly her head is so big that it got stuck in between the bedpost or whatever. Yeah, but it's right, but that was more for making fun of stuff. You said you grew up sitting not sitting on your mom's bed, and you're not supposed to go in the room. Yeah, going to my parents' room, that was like a really interesting thing. Like I used to go in there when nobody was in there. I thought like I was like when nobody was in the house, I snuck in my parents' bedroom to be like, "Ooh, I'm sitting on the bed." That was a huge deal. You said even in the tents, didn't they have separate places? Well, in the tents, yeah, in the tents, depending if you're in the tent, you probably have to have other tents during the time for the period back then. You probably would have had to have that. Yeah, just to see how it looked. Yeah, I used to go up in there and be like, "Ooh, I'm up on mama's bed, daddy's bed. They got the king size bed." I remember they had the queen. I think they had the king, not the Cali King. They might have had. Did they have the Cali Kings back then? I don't know, but I know. I'm pretty sure they had the king. I was like, "Ooh," and I had because when my sister and I were growing up, we had bunk beds, but obviously when you get to be a certain age, they don't want you in the same room anymore. So I was in a room we just split the bunk bed up. So I used to sleep on one half of the bunk bed. She slept on the other half of the bunk bed in another room, and then parents had their own room. So I remember. You said your children were little. They sleep with you and your wife. Oh yeah, when they little. But when they get to a certain age, oh no, this is right. But I'm just saying all that to say it's cultural, right? I don't need somebody else's culture trying to say this is what makes us, you know, like in all the stuff that we talk about. And I love my Afrocentric brethren, obviously. Like if somebody doesn't get it, if you don't know what I'm wearing, right, then obviously, like you're. This is very obvious. I love my Afrocentric brothers and sisters. You- I don't shy away from Afrocentricity at all. But like I said earlier, a lot of us are so busy trying to tell us what the status is and tell us why our belief system is better than everybody else, or tell us why we have to win the argument that we don't come together. We don't win anything. This is why we have a problem with fortune. We have become very unfortunate. In the Bible, even, right? Even in your Bible, Psalm 122, it tells you that Israel is supposed to be a compact nation. That means you are supposed to be a nation that comes together. You said what would be the best way? I don't learn Aramaic. Once again, we talked about this earlier. No shade. Aramaic is the language that was spoken by some of the people who follow biblical principles. But Aramaic, you really got to realize Aramaic was a language that was spoken. It was never written. If you want to know what's there, you have to learn Hebrew. Hebrew is actually original. So when people try to say, well, we go off of Aramaic writings, you guys developed Aramaic writings eventually, but you didn't have them at the time of the Bible. So you can't tell me about Aramaic writing, right? And by the way, we have to look at who are we calling Aramaic too, because not all Aramaic people are Aramaic, at least not at that time. You have people married into stuff, you learn a lot of stuff, but you got to learn Alpha, or what you call Paleo Hebrew. You got to learn it if you're talking about the actual language. It came before the Septuagint, which is the Greek. Matter of fact, the alphabet, which you use today, because you write in Greek, even if you speak in Anglo-ish, right? But you write in Greek. Well, why do you write in Greek? Because you got it because of the alphabet. The alphabet is not an English interpretation. Matter of fact, if you try to learn ancient English, you'll discover that it's not the you can't read it the same. You can't write it the same. You can't. You'll discover, right? You can't. It's not the same language. The people who were Anglo-ish, they were killed off for the most part, or excuse me, they were eradicated for the most part, and the ones that remained, they basically have been bred into, just like a lot of colonizations do it, like with the what we call whitening or blackimenta, or stuff that happened in Australia, stuff that happened in Brazil, stuff that happened in Mexico, Argentina. When people say there's no people, first of all, no people that identify as what we would call black. Um, that's actually a bad thing. And once again, it's who do they identify as, but also look at the history of it. They were in the 1800s. There was serious stuff done to make sure that they were whitened. They paid people from other countries to come over and make sure that they slept with people of color as much as possible. And a lot of people of color, because white was considered to be better and you got more stuff, they just started having children with white people. Well, it's the same thing you're dealing with. You're talking about somebody who's Aramaic. Which Aramaic are you talking about? People that were married in, people that were conquered, people that hated other people, who and other people who got rid of certain things that were their standard. But also, we're talking about Avda or Hebrew. Who is that? Are we talking about, even if you talk about Yehovah Da'an, because the people don't even know the term Jew. If we're talking about prosperity, the term Jew does not even mean what people think it means, right? First of all, it comes from Yehovah Da'an, and it comes from Judah. So a Jew or a Yehovah Da'an person at one point was considered to be of one branch. You now call them tribes, but the real word for it is either kingdom or branch, right? We were part of the same tree, and we had 12 branches. That's what we called ourselves, branches. If you look up the Hebrew term, even go look it up, and your what do you call that? Sorry, your Strong's Concordance. You'll see that they use the term branch. We didn't use the word or kingdom. We tribe is a new word that's been introduced. Okay, so the branch that was called Yehovah or Yehovah was called Yehovah. In other words, in modern language, we might say the branch that was called Judah was also known as a Jew. Eventually, right, all of the tribes separated from the Jews. Right, there was 11 tribes up north. Really, we would have called it back then down south, but now we use the term up north because literally there's something Le Monde à l'envers. The world was flipped upside down. Look at ancient maps, you'll discover that, right? But now we call it the northern tribe. So let's just go for what we call it now. The 11 tribes up north went up north. One tribe stayed down south. That was the Jews, Judah. Eventually, the Levites were mistreated. Right? Oh, I'm sorry. For the Benjamites decided they were going to come back. So now the Jews mixed with Benjamin, which means that Benjamin and Jews are both considered, or Judah are considered to be Jews, or Yehovah. Then eventually, right, for the jump, the new king of the when it was the 11 tribes, they said they weren't going to give Levites any land, but they also weren't going to allow them to own, to have land. So they weren't going to allow the Levites to have land because they never had land in the kingdom originally. And they said we're not going to allow them to just get land, and therefore they're going to have to work for everything from scratch, which meant that the Levites now just became poor. And they also changed it to where they said Levites are not just only because of Levitical priesthood. So they said a Levite or somebody who could be a priest could come from any family, not just the Levites. The Levites obviously didn't take kindly to that. Some of them stayed, right? A lot of them said no, and they went back, right? And so now you got 2.5 tribes down south, and you got basically 9.5 tribes up north. Why the half? Because you've got Levi half there and half down. Then eventually they leave, according to 2nd Esther chapter 13, verses 40 through 45. They leave to look for a place that's not inhabited by man. They leave and they never come back after they're captured. one last time for them. There would be other captions that would happen later on. But as far as those tribes, they left. They said, we keep getting in trouble. We keep getting into false, spirits and worshiping anything except Elohim. We're done with it. And they said, we need to find a place to start again, the land of Asheroth, exactly as discussed in 2nd Ezra chapter 13, verses 40 through 45. Matter of fact, when Christopher Columbus leaves with the Hebrew interpreter, allowed to do so by the Pope and by Queen Isabella or Queen Isabel. Not sure if she's Isabel, forgive me, but whichever one, right? They let him leave there because he mentions that the people he was traveling with kept talking about, which were Africans who he was learning travel from. He said they kept telling him about this land of Asheroth. That's what they went looking for with a Hebrew interpreter. And when they got over to the land of Asheroth, or to what we would call Haiti today, when they got over there, the Haitians said, "Oh yeah, we mixed in with them. We speak dialect. That's how they could speak with the Hebrew interpreter." And they said, "We got the same weapons." They took some of them back as slaves, and then took some of their weapons back, and they studied the weapons. They said, "Wow, they make the weapons the same way the West Africans did, and we know these weapons because we have some of them that we have left over from when we fought them, and we fought them. Why? Because we're fighting against the Moors. The Moors were using these weapons, which means that the people who are saying that they speak Hebrew and mix with these West Africans who say that they're Hebrew, they must be the same people." All this stuff that I'm saying to you, I hope that you're getting it. I'm not talking about fortune only financially today, but I want you to recognize, see, this is fortune. When you learn yourself, this is fortunate. Watch this. Why do you think that they keep going certain places when they're looking for certain items or certain resources? It's because they're going to where you have the right to it. It's your born right. It's your fortune. And they have to keep telling you you're not who you are. So you identify with a straw man so that you keep giving up what's yours to somebody else's. Do I think there's tribes behind the ice wall? I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know what to think 100% about the ice wall. I'm not saying it is or isn't. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I don't know what to think about it. The theory is very interesting, but I'm not qualified to talk about it. So I won't say one way or the other because now I'm gonna get into opinions of stuff that I'm not really qualified to talk about. So if I'm not qualified to talk about something, I don't mind being quiet about it. Right? Shalom, how you doing? So I'm just saying, but these are things that are your born right. Like, why is it that we think it's acceptable for everybody to be mining for gold, silver, diamonds, and all that in Africa still? At some point, you could just say, "Look, we got it all," and you need to and see. Watch this. We can follow the blueprint. Mansa Musa, when he went over to Mecca on his pilgrimage, he gave gold everywhere. When he gave gold everywhere, guess what happened? Certain places that he gave gold to, they couldn't even use gold as anything as value for 10 years. If you stop giving everybody your gold and make sure that you give your people your gold, it has no value. The Gold Coast, when you go over to where the Gold Coast is, the Slave Coast, the Bread Coast, and the Ivory Coast, when you go over there, the Gold Coast used to be, it was called the Gold Coast because when you walk through the beaches, you would be kicking gold around. You were just running the gold. It wasn't that big a deal. Kings had gold, queens had gold. Sure, they had certain gold plate and there were gold, but children had gold running around. When you go over to Aztec lands, they described it, the conquistadors, when they came over, they described the Aztec lands as saying, like, yo, they got gold toys over here. The people who were coming from certain Eurocentric places, they thought gold was everything because they didn't have any. You had it. It's yours. Why you keep going to somebody who has to keep coming to you for it? The dances that are on TikTok and stuff like that, you have them. When you look up and research them, you find out that the people who started these things, they don't even get no play. How many songs have become famous on TikTok and somebody takes them and you don't even know and you think it's a corny song or something like that, then you come to find out, wait a minute, who so and so made the song and it sounds like this? I didn't even know, because you have it. You have it in you. There are people who take all types of things that come naturally in your babies and put it in their bodies just so they can go out and tan, so they can activate melanin or have more melanin in them so they can turn a different color. Hulk Hogan says that he hates N-words, but he tries to look your color. You got to ask yourself, I'm just saying, you got to ask yourself what's going on. You already have fortune. You are already fortunate. You are the ATM, as we discussed earlier. You are the ATM. The ATM doesn't go looking for everybody else to say, please. The ATM doesn't knock on people's doors. Hey, can y'all please come and get some money out of me? Everybody knows the value of an ATM. They come looking for it. Every child listening to this, or who listens to their parents to this, or whatever, every child that comes on and listens to us on Saturday, or Elder Mind when she teaches on Saturday, and I got to make sure I finish making their video for tomorrow. Praise y'all, right? But every person who's coming and learning this stuff, you got to realize, you got to start asking yourself, why is it that you've been told that you are supposed to chase what's already yours? Surely grace and mercy, surely righteousness and mercy, surely what's constitutional and his mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house. That's the family. This family comes with all the things I'm searching for. Why am I looking for what's already mine? You got to ask yourself, why am I waiting to die to receive the kingdom when the kingdom of heaven is inside of me? Is that not fortune? Amen. I know some of the babies listen to this every day too. That's why we're very careful as far as what comes on there. Right? But is that not fortune? Isn't that fortune for us? I mean, the kingdom of heaven's in you. How many ideas are in you that should have been businesses already and they're not? Thanks for being part of the community, Tara Marie. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. Right? There's $1 million idea in you, and watch this. It's not just for you; it's for your community. People keep talking about team building, nation build. There's no greater team than a nation. Why is the Chinese military in a position to where people start to get afraid of them? Why is China in a position financially where you're starting to get afraid of them? Because even though Chinese have certain groups of Chinese that don't even like each other, when it's time to go to battle, they're all Chinese. That's one of your problems. We keep talking about that we're Israelites, but every Israelite is trying to be the only Israelite who you should go to for knowledge. None of us want to live with each other, but we all Israel. And everybody stank. Got a stank attitude. Sorry if that's bad word usage, but it's real. Still separated on skin color. You sound like you're oppressing. You sound like you're oppressing. The only reason why they had that skin color is because somebody enslaved them and somebody did something to your sister that they shouldn't have done to your sister. And it turned out to be something that now you say you don't want any part of because they're not all Israel. You think that there was never an Israelite that was forced to lay down with somebody? You think their children couldn't marry back with anybody that was an Israelite? Something wrong with that. Yeah, we must unite. Something wrong with your thought process. You think there was never any, you think that people went to Babylon and there was no Babylonian dictator. If somebody went to Kemet, there was no Kemetic dictator that ever laid down with your sister. You forgot that people in Kemet left with you too, and people of Cush left with you too. You forgot that Balaam was a prophet of Israel. It was not an Israelite. What was the quote earlier? I'm sorry, babe. I should have taken a screenshot of it. You put the quote on there. And thank you, Sister Andrea. You put the quote on there um, from Thomas Jefferson. Those that wish to be ignorant and free, especially in civilization, concerning civilization. Um, what's the second part of it? Those that wish to be ignorant and free concerning civilization, or in a state of civilization, um, have not been and never will be, something like that. Thank you for putting it up again, babe. I appreciate you. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, what's the second part of it? I'm sorry, babe. Is won't never have should what's the rest of it? I'm sorry. I want to make sure I quote it. Okay, there we go. Thank you. So the whole thing, if a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free, right, in the state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. Right? Now we're at a place where we can't just say we're ignorant of it. Right? And how you doing, Stephen? Right? Ignorance is not ignorance is not acceptable anymore. It never was, because it made you right. My people perish for a lack of knowledge. That means intimacy. My people perish for lack of knowledge. Those that wish to be ignorant and free, in a state of civilization, right? You want to be ignorant and free, right? You expect what never was and never will be. Ignorance and freedom are opposites. You cannot be ignorant and be free. You keep talking about I want money, but you want it ignorantly. You want to ignore the details. You want to ignore what it takes. You want to ignore sowing into your community. You want to ignore, like, people keep trying to give every excuse not to tithe. Fine, but guess what everybody else does? I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Everybody else does. If you're an American, you don't just tithe. Most of you who are American citizens, you don't just tithe. You give 50, 60% and hope that maybe somebody says, up, we took thousands from you, but here's 2,000 back. Bling bling. Right? And your money's not even real. Because money's supposed to be backed up by gold or silver according to your standard. There's not even anything to back it up. But then you say cryptocurrency is bad, but you spend cryptocurrency because you don't even, a lot of y'all don't even carry cash. And on your cash, who's on your cash? Is it somebody who's worried about your freedom? I wonder. How much do you think George Washington was concerned about your freedom? Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, I'm skipping somebody, sorry, Andrew Jackson, Ulysses S. Grant, Benjamin Franklin. I forget who's on the $10 bill. I skipped the 10. Who's on the 10? Whatever, whoever that is, slave owner too. And it says on there, money, in God we trust. That's an oath. Do you know that an oath, by legal definition, an oath is considered to be a promise to a deity or a promise to a God? Andrew Jackson's on the 10. Who's on the 20 then? I skipped one of them. Who's on the 20? I don't know. Whoever's on the 20. I thought Jackson was the 20s. I could be wrong. I don't like Jackson that much. If you're a native, natives consider presidents to be town destroyers. Andrew Jackson is just about the worst one of them outside of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln actually did more damage than anybody else. I don't know whoever's on 10 and 20, right? Either way, slave owner. Jackson is the 20, yeah. So I skipped the 10. Whoever's on the 10. Jefferson's on the 2, right? He's on the $2 bill. And it's interesting if you even calculate who's who, because why is George Washington on the first one? He's supposed to be your father god. Hamilton, thank you. Right, slave owner, Virginia, right? But Washington, Virginia slave owner number one, right? The second president is actually who? It's Adams, John Adams, the original. His son becomes the sixth president, but he's the second president, right? But John Adams was just part of the Federalist Party. So the Federalist Party, number one is Washington. John Adams basically kind of continues what Washington did, right? And he only gets one term. Then comes Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson becomes what? The third president. But you consider him on the $2 bill. Why? Because Johnson and Adams are part of the first regime, Federalist Party. Second regime is Thomas Jefferson. However, George Washington, Virginia slave owner, Thomas Jefferson, Virginia slave owner. They're telling you a story without even, like, we don't even have to work that hard. They're telling you something without even have to write it out if you know the culture. Why do you put so much confidence in that? If anything, get that to eradicate it from your life as soon as possible, to trade it in for something called land. That's more powerful than a slave master on your money. Somebody's talking about slavery in the Bible and stuff. You got slave masters on your money. I bet that person's about their money. By the way, George Washington, Virginia slave owner. Thomas Jefferson, Virginia slave owner. Madison, Virginia slave owner. Monroe, Virginia slave owner. Um, and Jackson, not Virginia slave owner, Tennessee slave owner, but went to school in where? Virginia. Van Buren, New York slave owner. Okay. But then after that, I think it's Polk. We go right back to Virginia slave owners again. This thing is, and Virginia is what? The Commonwealth, which also becomes what? The capital of the Confederacy, which when the Confederates started, the people who made up the Confederacy, it's not a real Confederacy because nobody ever made them sovereign. The only real Confederacies are native, right? Indigenous people. But because those are the only ones that were actually given any kind of sovereignty. However, for those of you who think that 4 years or 4.5 years, 5 years, whatever, was actual Confederacy, right? Um, you must also recognize that they argued on behalf of the people who wrote the Constitution, including George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Monroe, Madison, excuse me. And then later on, they would argue for people like Polk and even Zachary Taylor. He's president number 15, because right before Lincoln, and all these different people. Why did they argue on behalf of them? They said because these people argued on behalf of slavery when they wrote the Constitution. And when you read the Constitution, they ain't lying. They're not lying. You're not even authorized to use your money outside of a commonwealth of slave owners who you were taught fought against the British and totally eradicated the British connection, although George Washington and King George were boys before the war and boys after the war. They never stopped. By the way, George Washington's wife had Negroid features. That's why she was known as a brunette, or what you call a brunette. That's what a brunette was somebody with brownish or Moorish features. And then King George was married to Queen Catherine. Nuh-uh. I keep saying Catherine. Why do I keep saying Catherine? Queen Catherine is Russia, right? Queen Charlotte. I keep saying Catherine. Thank you, man. And then King George is married to Queen Charlotte, who was an African woman. You had one guy who was part of the swirl slave owner over here and married his wife because he said she got her twice as much slaves. You had one guy who married into Queen Charlotte and married her to make sure that he could have some of the African identity in his bloodline and to be able to get more stuff. And by the way, that African bloodline is in every royal European, European or any kind of European royal descent that exists today. You have to put Queen Charlotte in there. You have to. Right? Look deeper into those bloodlines. They are the people, they're connected. As much as you talking about they hate each other, they're still connected, doing the same exact thing. And the Commonwealth of Virginia is still making sure that they pay in their tithes. But somebody says that you shouldn't take care of your community. I'm trying to tell you something that don't make sense. How are you going to become a kingdom? How do you become a nation and you don't sow into each other? And by the way, there's a Charlotte, Virginia. Y'all know that, right? I mean, there's a Charlotte, North Carolina too, which slave owner places used to be part of Carolina. It used to be one Carolina. Now we call it, we call it North and South Carolina. But there's a Charlotte, Carolina, but also there's a Charlotte, Virginia. Same thing, same place. Just like when you're talking about Maryland or Maryland, that's Queen Mary's land. Used to be Roman Catholic. You're sowing into stuff that's bigger than what you think it is. Every state is a nation. The United States is a corporation. It's a corporation of many nations that say that they work together, but each nation holds its right to be able to do what they want. We keep talking about prosperity as if it's our prosperity. Hey, Sister Oslin, how you doing? We keep talking about this fortune as if it's your fortune. You have a fortune people keep robbing you of. Like, this is your stuff. It's yours. That's why there's two Americas, right? Not just because there's a black versus white and all that, or what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. preached, which was very true, but there's two Americans by definition. There's the original American, which is the copper-colored person, indigenous to the Americas. And then there's the modern American, those who basically painted their faces black, threw some tea over, and said, now we're the Americans. You said, is there black blood in every race? First of all, I don't really do the races as much because the word race comes from Carl Linnaeus, who then took it to, it was taken by Charles Darwin, and then Charles Darwin's cousin, who's over eugenics and all that stuff. That's kind of that's how that works itself out. But race used to just mean animals, right? So there were animals and others before Carl Linnaeus, but Carl Linnaeus kind of made it his own, where he started talking about how animals are in competition, so they have races. And then they started saying human beings are in competition, so they have races. And then started the connection, well, maybe human races came from animal races, which is when Charles Darwin takes it to the next level and starts telling you how every race came from a different animal. And what's the name of his book? His name of the book is The Origin of, the one in 1859, The Origin of Species, The Theory of Evolution, or by means of natural selection, or the struggle for survival of favored races. So I don't really do the whole human race thing because I don't come from an animal. I don't do the whole human race thing because I don't believe that I'm in competition with any other being. If there is somebody who tries to compete with me, um, then I must compete if it means that my life or my family's livelihood is on the line. But I don't go out here looking to compete with anybody. On my best day, nobody can ever be me. And on my best day, I can never be anybody else. And I love those differences, right? I've said this all the time. My wife is better at certain things than I am, and I'm better at certain things than she is. When we found that out, started working, right? Before then, it was a little rocky. It was still really great when I look back on it. But, the rocky times, if there are any that even still come up or will be on their way, they just come from, usually we forget that we're not equal. We're actually not supposed to be equal. We're supposed to be okay with being not equal. We're supposed to be okay with she's going to do some things that I can't do, and I'm going to do some things that she can't do. We're supposed to be okay with she gets to make some decisions, and we just, as a family, we go off of those decisions, and I get to make decisions, and as a family, we move in those. It's the way we're created and designed. How you doing, JoJo? Right, but as far as races or whatever, or if you're saying, does everybody have the same bloodline at some point? Do we get back to all having the same DNA? I would say yes. Now, there's some people who would tell you that certain people were made in a lab, or certain people were this and that. I don't address that because that seems to be more opinionated and stuff that kind of became theorized out of opinion. Um, we know what albinoism does. We know where albinoism came from. We know how we treat people that are albino, even in our own communities, if they're Afrocentric or whatever. So we kind of know where certain people were sent. We know why they were sent there. We know what certain families brought with them. Um, and at the end of the day, if you're somebody who believes in treating people with respect and you don't deny my right to have a culture, and really if you share a kingdom culture with me, some people don't want to go that far. However, if you're somebody who thinks that all cultures should be respected, and that um, certain morality should be not just implied or insinuated, but should be lived vigorously, then I am with you 100%. You are my brother, you are my sister. So as far as the race thing, if we're talking about the blood or the DNA, yeah, we get to a point to where you can say, like, Noah is our seminal head at a certain point. We can't go outside of that. If you want to go back further than Noah, Adam is our seminal head at a certain point. Uh, right now, before Adam, if you want to talk about some things that are there that might have happened and certain things that leak into the bloodline, we could even, that's spicy, that's more opinionated, but we could have that conversation. But if we're using Adam as the seminal head, or Noah as the seminal head, or even Avda or Hebrew or Israel as a seminal head, etc., we get to a certain place where we have to just address stuff as it is what it is. But yeah, the further back we go, I say this about everybody, further back we go, the more one everybody becomes, the more language we share, the more dialects, or the less dialects are there, the more monotheism is there, um, the less polyamorous, if you will. I know I'm not using the right term, but the less polygamy there is that people are trying to get into. And the further back we go as well, Just keeping it in the buck, the darker we all get. Right? Equality is a myth. There's no two people. Like I said, my wife and I, we work really well together because she can do things I can't do. I can do things she can't do. And we're okay with that. I have faults she doesn't have. She has faults that I don't have. And we are okay with that. Right. So if we're going to do this humanity thing that people try to pull the wool over our eyes, and now they try to use humanity as code to say, hey, stop thinking that you're better than somebody else, or stop thinking that or now there's no difference. I was watching something today. And no offense, but this is something that I think some people in the LGBTQ community would actually agree with me on. Some would disagree, and that's all right, right? But it's not something that's 100% agreed upon within their own community. But there was a guy arguing with somebody else, and he was trans. So he was this person, I guess, would be considered to be a trans woman, whatever. And they were talking to a male, somebody who considers himself biologically male and gender-wise male. For those who need that, right? For me to explain it that way, this is for educational purposes only. And so they're having an argument, and the trans woman is saying that, who are you to say that, certain women don't have, certain women can't have periods. And the guy goes, well, all is a it's biologically, periods is something that you have to have certain biological things to take place. And he says, no, all women have periods. Remember now, it's gone from trans women should be respected to intersectionality to all women are women to now all women have periods is the new one. And I need you to see, I won't even go deep into that argument, right? I won't even go deep into that argument. What I would tell you is that in that argument, we have a problem. Because once again, I said we started off with this. Remember, we started off with this? If if what is the definition of a male or female? What's your definition of male or female was the first question. Second question is, what is the definition? What is the government's definition of male or female? Next question we asked is, what is a birth certificate real? We discovered that's no. Does that mean it's a real person? That means an artificial person. So then we said, well, if there's a male or female attached to that, or even a trans person, whatever, a they or them attached to that document, then what does that mean? That means that person's still an artificial person. If you're an artificial person, right, and you're starting to have this now, it shouldn't be surprising, right? If you're an artificial person, it should not be surprising to us that now we're starting to get into, I can do artificial things. I won't get into the depths of it because it's pretty disgusting as far as what people would do to themselves to have periods or mock periods or whatever, right? But there are trans women or just men that are gay or just men in general, maybe, who are queer, whatever you want to call. Each person is in a different place. Somebody who might be, what is it that you say, non-cis male or whatever, that have tried to do things to have periods. Sometimes it comes through mutilation, sometimes it comes through insertions, whatever, right? Um, but you can't biologically have a period if you're not a female, right? If you don't have XX chromosomes, it's impossible. I saw another video where somebody was talking, and it was two men speaking against a woman. The woman was the one who was the woman was actually the one who was saying that she doesn't like. So the two guys were up there, and they were basically trying to have an argument, debate, and they offered her a chance to come up, and they said, well, you're somebody who says that you're against um, all women are women. What is your response? So a lot of people, and I wouldn't say this is a bad response, but a lot of people would think her first response would be, well, you know, I'm a woman, I have a period, I have a child, I have this, right? I think that would be all right for a debate, a proper debate, apologetically, to go back where both sides are going to tell their side, whatever. Um, However, that wasn't her response. Her response was actually pretty enlightening. They said, why do you think that? She said, because I'm a biologist. I went, ooh, right? Like she was about to, she said, look, in biology, she said, in science, you can't go back. I said, oh, all right, let me listen. What's she talking about? What you talking? Right? She said that. She said in biology you can't go back. I said, oh. She said in science you can't really go back. I said, all right, let's see what you said. She said, look, at the end of the day, and she squashed a lot of stuff. She she's she goes, um, if you're going to talk about this, she says that when a child is born, you have X X X Y. It doesn't show up in certain places, sure, but there gets to be a certain point to where it was always there that this child was going to be a male or a female, and it starts to show up. Once that starts to show up, you cannot ever go back to change it. You can cut stuff, you can make a hole, you can add skin to something to make a phallus, a mock phallus, whatever. You can do all types of stuff, right? But as long as that person goes to a doctor for the rest of their life, they have to be identified with the doctor as either XX or XY. How you doing, Najee? You have to be for the rest of your life. Not because anybody hates you. It's we can't even take care of you correctly. If you come to my wife, who's a herbalist, and you say I need certain things done or whatever, you can't. She might. She would probably help you. I don't want to speak for her, but I mean, knowing her heart, she would probably help somebody with health concerns, no matter what you're going through her business. She would help anybody, right? But she can't help you if she asks you, are you male or female, and you are male biologically, but you say, oh, I'm female. There's going to be some things that she's going to miss. As much as she wants to help you, there's certain things she can't do, even if it's natural medicine, all that doesn't matter. She can't, there's certain things she can't do for you if you're not at least willing to admit to her the basic biology. Same thing with doctors. In their practice, they can't practice on you if they don't know if you're male or female. Matter of fact, it's irresponsible of them. It's illegal for them. That's why you have to tell the doctor, no matter what. You cannot. You can say online, if you're trying to buy something, you don't have to say if you're male or female. If you want to play a video game, you don't have to say you're male or female. If you're taking tests, you don't have to say if you're male or female. But you go to the doctor's office, you have to say male or female. Why? Because they have to be able to help you to heal or help your body to heal itself. It's not because anybody hates you. I'm trying. There's some Israelites out there, some Hebrew Israelites that wouldn't even be as nice as what I'm being nice about. Like I'm actually taking time out to say they, them, this person, this and that, or whatever. A lot of people would be like, man, F what they say. They just say that they did. Look, if it's in your culture, that's what you do. That's your culture. It's not mine. And thank you for that. It's 11:11, babe. And thank you for that, Sister Rana. Right? When they talking about exactly, and my Minister Smaila, right? When they talking about that, they're talking about what? They're talking about biologically is what? Is what the master desired. Yeah, most transgender people know that. I'm just saying though that there are some that are having this argument, but we can't be surprised with the argument if once again, see, I'm not just going off of trans or talking about lesbian or gay or this and that. I'm talking about even your status. When we're talking about prospering, we're talking about fortune, we're talking about coming together as a nation. I'm trying to tell you that a lot of stuff is based off of an artificial person. It goes back once again to the 14th Amendment citizen. To goes back to what? It goes back to a birth certificate. Your birth certificate is not even a real person. It is an artificial person. It's not a natural person. So how can you talk about natural law with an artificial person? The artificial mindset didn't start with LGBTQ plus, is what I'm trying to get to. That's what I'm really trying to get to. You can't undo the works of Yahweh. I'm on, right? What I'm really trying to get to is that this is not a new thing. Like this thing happened when we started looking at things artificially. This is something that goes to a place of there are a lot of men, physiologically speaking, adult males who are still little boys mentally. It's not as simple as what you think. See, we're living stuff. We're living stuff that's not real at all. In our culture, what is a husband? We don't even know what that is. We just go, oh, well, if you love somebody enough, then you become their husband. That's not what a husband is. You're supposed to be pre-qualified for husband before you walk down the aisle. If you even do the walking down the aisle, because walking down the aisle is not even in our culture. It's not even in your Bible. See, if you can't identify with who you are, once again, I told you, it doesn't matter where you are, it matters who you are. If you having problems identifying with who you are, it's going to be tough out here. When it comes to fortune, what did you spend? How much importance is it to make sure that you have your own food or have your own land? If you think that, look, for you, Jewel Osco, Giant, um, Piggly Wiggly, Sprouts, um, Walmart. What's the one I'm seeing in my head that Amazon owns? I see it. Whole Foods. You said marriage is not in the Bible. I didn't say marriage is not in the Bible. That's not what I said. Right? Hear what I'm saying? Watch this. Walking down the aisle is not in the Bible. Wearing a white dress to get married is not in the Bible. Wearing a tuxedo is not in the Bible. Having a Victorian wedding is not in the Bible. Matter of fact, in the Bible, there's a marriage ceremony, but marriage is sex and sex is marriage. When somebody knows somebody, then they have sex. They have sex. They are what? They become one. And people want to call it rituals. We don't call it rituals, but if I get what you're saying as far as certain traditions or whatever, but once again, traditions go with culture. We don't even know what our culture is when we wed. Do you know that when you sign a contract for marriage, right? When you sign a contract for marriage, you don't sign a contract for the actual marriage. You sign a contract for the betrothal in our culture. That's real. You sign a contract for betrothal, for being affianced, for when you when you get on your knee and you give the ring and you put the ring on the person's finger and all that. Back then, that would have been the contract. Then we would have said, okay, she's going to prepare herself for her husband. He's going to go prepare a place for his wife, right? And then once the father of the groom, who's watching over him build the house, which is called a mansion, an add-on. In my father's house, there were many mansions. If it was not so, I would not have told you. He was talking about something cultural. They comprehended that he was talking about if he's going away to prepare a place, he's saying he's our husband in the spirit. And the father, just like our father would watch over our house to make sure that the building we're adding on to our father's property is great enough to take care of our family, so that our family can also come to the father's house and help us with the children. The father's going to watch over it. When he knows that the house is worthy of his daughter-in-law, then he tells his son, go get your wife. That's why no man knows the day nor the hour except the father, because the father has in mind what he wants for his daughter-in-law, who's going to be married to his son. And you would, when that, the thing that releases that is when everybody agrees. You would have affidavits and all this stuff set up and all these witnesses to represent when the two families came to terms. That was the contract. This is why Joseph, or Yasav, but who we call Joseph, right, Yasav Atmadayam, or Joseph and Mary. This is why when Joseph finds out that Mary's pregnant, it says that he was going to put her away privately, privately. They were already in contract. He didn't see Mary every day because he was preparing a place for Mary. And she's supposed to be preparing a place, having oil in her lamp, all that stuff. And now all of a sudden here comes Mary and she meets with Joseph, and Joseph finds out that she's pregnant. But it says that he was a righteous man and he loved her. Still, he didn't want to see her go out like that. So he was going to put her away, because even in the culture, he still didn't want to mess with what? Her fortune. He still didn't want to mess with, hey, maybe down the line. He didn't want to put it out there where he was just going to be like, hey, okay, it just didn't work out. And hopefully she's able to do what she needed to do with the baby or whatever. But if she has somebody that comes down the road and they want to be with her or whatever, that's cool. I got love for her. But man, I don't think I can live with somebody and she out here cheating on me. So he put her away. He was going to put her away, but do so privily. He was going to go because they were already a contract. Then he has the dream and realizes that Mary has not slept with anybody. She's been impregnated through Ravak HaKodash, with the seed of the Father that will become the manifestation of the Son. right? And literally, the Holy Spirit, Haravak Hakodash, acting as, because in our culture, the Holy Spirit is a she. Haravak Hakodash is always referred to as she or her, right? So in the Holy Spirit actually was acting as a as a doula, even helping with the pregnancy, so that the Father's seed would be able to come to the earth, that this manifestation of the Son would be correct. And so Joseph, the Bible declares, had uh, he never had sex with her or became married officially with her until Yahashua is born, and after she healed up, and took on that responsibility out of love for her and love for Yah, and realizing that he was really raising the manifestation of Yah on earth. That's how that happened. It's a cultural context, right? But see, so in Yasav, he becomes what? He's a carpenter, and the Most High, he sends not just three, because remember, people do this whole weird thing. It was three wise men. There were many magi, and really from many different places, although some will try to focus from one place. But there were many magi, which could mean magician. It could also mean rulers. It could mean princes. It could mean people of high esteem. But these are people that had a lot, and they came with many different gifts to lay at the feet of the Son of of Yahweh. And they knew that he was coming. Everybody. So this was not just an Israelite thing, by the way, either, which we get stuck on. You got to realize when you look at ancient Chinese, right? Ancient Chinese used to worship somebody named Shangdi, and Shangdi was the title for Yahweh, and they believed in Noah, and they believed in Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Oh yeah. In India, they used to worship one. They weren't always polytheists; they were monotheists. In Kemet, they had somebody, even though he was trying to worship the sun, but they had somebody like Akhenaten who was trying to get back into a monotheistic viewpoint. A lot of people talk about the flood, whether you want to talk about Gilgamesh or whomever. A lot of people, right? Matter of fact, in China, going back to them, you can't spell out the word family in character without having three characters in one. If you write out family, you have to superimpose three characters. Those characters are eight people and boats, or sorry, eight boat and water. Yeah, I had to start pouring it out and rubbing it. You got any water? Yeah. So I'm just trying to show you, like, this thing is fortune and it's yours and it's worldwide. Many people all over the world believe this and have taken this or whatever. This is yours. We keep going back. People are acting like we're trying to give you something new, or this is a new movement. This Hebrew Israelite movement, this is so new. And so for everybody been doing this. Once again, peep game. See, this fortune belongs to you. This language belongs to you. Why is it that you speak Israelite language? Because you speak Isaac's language. Why do you speak Isaac's language? Because of Abraham. Why Abraham? Because of Tehran. Why Tehran? Because of Pelag. Why Pelag? Because of Avra. Why Avra? Because of Shem. Why Shem? Because of Noah. Why Noah? Because of Lamech. Why Lamech? Because of Methuselah. Why Methuselah? Because of Enoch. Why Enoch? Because of Enos. Why Enos? Because of Canaan. Why Canaan? Because of Seth. Why Seth? Because of Adam. And by the way, remember, Adam lived long enough to be able to talk to Enoch. Remember? Adam and Enoch had conversation. Look in the book of Jasher. Adam speaks to Enoch. Oh. Go ahead. Sorry. Okay. Adam speaks. Sorry. Sorry. Adam speaks to Enoch, right? And Enoch actually buries Adam. It's the same language. Right? It's the same language. Remember that Methuselah trained up Noah and doesn't pass away until the flood starts. So that means that when Shem is speaking the language, right? Which Shem would have also been alive, by the way, right? Shem was alive when Methuselah was still alive. So Shem talked to his great grandfather Methuselah, which meant that he spoke the same language. That also means then what? Like you see what I'm saying? Then we have to also get into a place where if Shem speaks the same language as Methuselah, then that means that even though Shem's children never did it, that means that also Shem is who? Well, Shem and then also Ham, right? So if we're dealing with Ham, Ham spoke the same language. Ham is where you get Africa from, right? If Ham is where you get Africa from, then you got to also realize that Ham and Shem spoke the same language. See, this is when it gets this. That's why I said it's at some point we all come back together. This is your fortune. We are unfortunate because we don't even look at each other the same. You're so quick to try and say the same thing that somebody else did to you. This is the reason why they conquered you. You kept believing that because you were of different branches of what you call tribes, different families, that means that you don't ultimately still have, just because you have subfamilies doesn't mean you don't come from the same family. And we're still arguing. They too light skinned, they too dark skinned. As if any of you are mixed with, or if anybody on this planet now is not mixed. How you doing, Be Real? How you doing, Sister Snap, if I didn't say so already? So I'm just saying, like, we got to get past this. I'm just saying we got to get past this at some point. If you're going to be who you're called to be, you are definitively greater than division. If you were scattered all over the earth, you think you were scattered all over the earth just because? You would think you were scattered all over the earth, or you were scattered all over the earth to make sure that something in you was able to teach others. You said, were we born monogamous beings, or was that taught by society? Well, once again, if you're talking about society, especially if you're talking about individuals versus society, there is no individuals without society. There's no society without individuals. We can't even tell who individuals are or how to classify them without having a society to base them upon. And no individual has ever learned anything without a society. So I think that's the wrong question, because everything that we're doing, including being able to speak to each other in whatever form that you want to call it speech, we still have to have a society that allows us to even comprehend enough of what we're talking about. Culture is what you need to figure out as far as which societal values are you upkeeping, or do you even think are worthy, right? But to say that society teaches to be monogamous, well, I mean, you can say the same thing. Did society teach you to be polygamous? And why does the polygamous side of society get more from you than the monogamous side? I mean, that within itself is a weird argument. You see what I'm saying? It's not an argument that we can actually use outside of figuring out how to use it as a straw man or how to gaslight. No offense to you. But if we just look at it, if I take emotion out of it and I just look at the words that we're using, are we saying that therefore polygamy was always natural? Is that I'm not saying that's what you're saying. I'm saying we have to be careful of the word usage, because what we're really doing is saying, I guess polygamy was always natural, but if society didn't introduce monogamy, then you wouldn't care about monogamy that much. But you could say the same thing. Well, was monogamy always natural? And what about society about polygamy, besides it making you feel great, or just meaning that you didn't have to be as accountable to certain things, or you didn't have to learn the oneness of husband and wife? And which culture did you get it from? Because if you look at, like, if we look at things culturally, Noah doesn't have multiple wives. Now, I know you'll say, well, that's not who I'm looking at. Okay, fine. You show me the person you're looking at, and show me all these people that had multiple wives and stuff, and that we look at them as somebody that we should follow, and they never had any drama. And how you doing, Leroy? Sorry about that. I just saw you come on, or I just saw you've been on. Excuse me. So I'm just saying we got to be careful with it. Once again, though, see, it's our fortune. How do we look at our fortune? How do we look at what's going to get us to where we need? You said the drama we have today is because of your Yakov / Israel. A lot of that is, yeah. because he ends up with 4 women. He only wanted one, by the way. And even though he obviously had to say yes to this, so we don't take away any accountability from Jacob or Israel, but let's be honest about it. Jacob only wanted Rachel. He ends up with Leah because he was tricked by Rachel, Leah, and their father. But he worked 7 years for Rachel. Loved Rachel enough to work 7 more years to get her. But guess what? He got that because he was a trickster himself. And his mother, Rebecca, helped him to get certain things. He had already tricked his brother out of his bloodline, which his brother shouldn't. He just really gave up. Esau gave up. But then on top of that, then you have Rachel. And Rebecca. Rebecca helps to make sure that the little pieces that are left for Esau, they go ahead and take that too. So at some point, we got to keep it a buck. We got to be honest. We have a real conversation. And there's some stuff that we still deal with. So now you got Jacob, but now Jacob's got what? He's got Rachel. He's got Leah, Rachel, Milpah, and Zilpah. And Milpah and Zilpah, although they have children, they can't even raise their children, right? Because their children were supposed to be used for competition between Leah and Rachel, which means that their children are jacked up, even in the love of a mother. What is that? What is my mother? And how does my father even look at me as far as the rank that I come into? Because the first 4 children, which are Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, they come straight out of Leah's womb. But the ones that he loves the most aren't even the ones that come out of Leah's womb again. The next 2 that would come out of her womb, or the 2 that came from her servant, or the 2 that came from Rachel's servant. The only one that the 2 children he gives the most love to and protection to are going to be Joseph and Benjamin. Not just because they were the youngest, but because they were Rachel's. All this stuff is stuck up in there. And people still want to go down that same route, not seeing the damage that did, nor the curses that it still causes us to keep. No wonder we can't be fortunate. There's some curses that you carry. Just because we got here through Jacob doesn't mean that everything that Jacob did is correct. It doesn't mean there's some things that we don't have to correct. What you say is that having multiple wives, husbands, spouses is perverted. Yeah. 2 become 1. That's proper integration. That's integrity. That's holiness. Yeah, Judah waking up and telling everyone they're not Judah. Right? And Judah, by the way, if you look up what happened with that, right? We're gonna get ready to take our leave soon. But Judah, if you look at what happened, what happened, Leah, because of the trick that she's helped to play on Israel, knows that Israel doesn't love her. But Israel is going to try and do, I guess, what he considered to be the reasonable thing, which is, okay, I guess, I don't really love her. I wanted Rachel, but they tricked me into being with her. Okay, so I'll take care of her best I can as a wife, but he doesn't really love her. So if you look at what she names her children, first child is named, the firstborn is Reuben. Reuben means what? It means he'll see me. So he'll see me now. I've had the first child. Rachel's been running off at the mouth. The Most High shut up her womb. Okay, cool. He'll see me now. He ain't spending no time with her, obviously, because when she has the second child, she names that child Simeon. That means he'll hear me. First child, okay, he'll see about me. Okay, he ain't seen about me. Now I done had 2 child. I'm two, and they're both 2 boys. He'll hear me. He'll see me and he'll hear me now. Obviously, that didn't work, though. She has another child named Levi. Levi's name basically translates to, he'll be by my side. That whole rib thing, he needs me, he'll be by my side. I got 3, I done got the trifecta. One for the Father, one for the Son, one for the Holy Spirit. He can't mess with me now. But obviously that didn't work. She has a 4th child. But guess what? On this 4th child, she names this child Yehovah, or Judah, which means praise. She realized, I've been trying to get with this dude, and I thought that my fortune was going to come through this, and it was going to be this and that, and I tried to steal him, and I became the first wife, and I was in on the trick and everything. But I've learned, even if he don't see me, even if he doesn't hear me, even if he won't be by my side, it was never about him. I'll just praise Yehovah, or what you call Judah. I'll just praise Yah. And when she began to praise and worship him, it said Yah then shut up her womb. Eventually, he would open it up again later on. But it says, then Yah shut up her womb at that point. Why? Because you've been out here having babies and giving birth to things and trying to bear things and trying to do all this stuff to impress somebody who in their system you ain't impressive in the first place, because you never were their choice. You tried to trick somebody into making you their choice. You tried to do something that was righteous, become a wife, but you tried to do it through weird means. But you weren't supposed to be married to him. Same way, you try to do all this stuff with the system, but you're not supposed to be married to the system. This system ain't looking for you like that. This system doesn't care about you like that. This system doesn't want you. This system doesn't see you. They don't hear you. They are not by your side. I don't care if they're your allies or not. You out here doing all this stuff, putting all this stuff out there, opening your leg, opening your womb, open up your garden so that the beast can come in, that United States corporation can come in, that the president of the United States can come in there and tell you how he's going, literally. And I'm sorry if that, that's pause or take that literally, that they can come inside and do all this stuff and plant all this weird seed inside you, and you're supposed to give birth to all these things. You know what? You should be getting to a point now to where, hey, you got to raise these babies that you had. You got to birth these things that you brought on upon yourself by trying to trick your way into somebody's graces and stuff that weren't for you in the first place. Yeah, you got to raise some things now. All things work together for righteousness, though. But yeah, you're going to have to raise some things. However, don't forget that you can also give birth to Judah. You can give birth to praise. Amen. Matthew 6:33-34. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all his righteousness. Seek ye first the kingdom of Elohim and all his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto thee. And stop worrying about the things of the morrow, for the morrow will already take care of the things for itself, even sufficient to the evil thereof. And said, Leah, our great, 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 was thirsty in the worst way, led to all sorts of drama. Yeah. Leah, you should have just waited for somebody who wanted you. But you got what you paid for. You got what you were opened up to. Matthew chapter 6, verse 33 and 34. Right? You got what you paid for. Come on. You and a lot of us still, you out here, Leah. Just because you're part of Israel, don't forget that the sisters part count too. I know y'all don't think about the sons. But Leah, Rachel, Milpah, Zilpah, Dinah, look at what these sisters did too. I know you only think men have a part to play, right? But look at what these sisters out here doing too. And Rachel did all that, was talking all that smack. I'm the best, like some of y'all still be doing out here. I'm the best. Listen to my message. Come to my TikTok channel. You better listen to me. Nobody's preaching it like this. F this one, F that one. These N words this, these C words this. That's how y'all be talking on here. That's how y'all talk on the street. That's how y'all talk on TikTok. You be cursing more than the curses of themselves in Deuteronomy 28 and all this stuff. You out here sounding like Rachel and trying to figure out why you can't give birth to nothing. You're out here sounding exactly like Rachel. I'm the first. I'm really the second child, but I'm really the first. And he really loved me. And he loved me more than this. And he loved me that. And you can't give birth to nothing. Your womb is shut. No fortune. Ooh, that's a word. I wish we had more time. The device is going to lose its power. But praise y'all. Maybe we'll come back to this. If somebody brings this up later this evening, maybe we can go back into this. I don't know. Right. But hear what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying. Talking all this mess. Where your children at? Talking all this mess. Where your business at? Talking all this mess. Where your people at? Talking all this mess. Where's your faithfulness at? Talking all this mess. You got every last book of the Apocrypha, even though the Apocrypha was not 54 books, but now you got 54. And look, I'm not saying that 54 Apocrypha isn't something worth reading, but hear what I'm saying. The Apocrypha was actually a specific set of books. But you got all this knowledge and you got all this time to tell everybody how you the best and how you the greatest. And you seen all over the place and you getting all the views. And now everybody's counting on you. Nobody can get a word without you. You sound great and everything, but where's your nation? Where's your seed? You talking about fruits. Come on, Sister Shima. You talking about fruits out here. But fruit is designed to give seed. Birds are attracted to the fruit so that they'll take the fruit, and the tree gives the fruit in hopes that the bird will be attracted to the fruit so that it will eat it, but then drop the seed somewhere else. This is fortune. Are you fortunate? Are you leaving a legacy? Are you fortunate? When this land finally is ours, I'm praying that the one we're going to visit is going to be ours. I really am, because the spirit that's on it, the person whose spirit is on it, is great, right? Still got to go look at it physically. I'm not just rushing in, but even when we get the land, right? Like, comprehend, that's not for you. That's not for me. That's for generations. We just overseers at this point. I know that's not a great word to look, right? But that's what we are. We're people who are just basically asked by the Most High to make sure we maintain what He gave and make it better. We're going to be treating soil for acres, going around slowly but surely, just treating soil and planting stuff. I told you before, it's not, there we are, keepers, right? I've told y'all this before in this whole series. When we had a second part, we talked about family. If it's not about family, I don't want it. If it's not about family, I don't want it. I don't want freedom because it just makes me free. Holy Spirit, I'm trying to stop. I really am trying to stop. She said I'm not finished yet. I'm trying to be. I'm gonna be obedient. I don't even know what I got left, but she said we keep going. Well, here what I'm saying. Ah. We all have a work, we all have a calling, we all have a gift because we work for each other. How you doing, Minister Tama? We all have a gift, we all have a calling, we all have an office, we all have a position. We're all part of the body because we all work for each other. We work for the Most High. That means that we work for each other. We've been talking about membership and remembership and coming back to who we're supposed to be. Hear what I'm saying. Hear me, beloved. Yehovah, Judah, Jews, whatever, Benjamin, Levi. Hear me when I say this to you. We work for each other because we work for the Most High. Your tithes, your finances are not even for Yah as much as they are for each other. The tithes are brought in the storehouse that there might be meat in mine house, but His house, His family is us. We are His children. Whatever you can give to your brother or sister is not for your brother or sister. Whatever you can give to me is not for me. Whatever you can give to your wife is not for your wife. Whatever you can give to your husband is not for you. That's why it says, give unto each other as unto the Lord. Submit to one another as unto Yehovah, right? Give unto each other as you would give unto the Lord. And once again, just like we talked about with food, eating wrong is a sin. May I say this to you? Not treating fortune right, not building up fortune, not multiplying, not making sure that we end up with this much, but then getting twice as much back at least. That is a sin as well. Why? Because sin means to miss the mark. You said we are to be the one. How do we become one? Because these camps not all in order. Well, once again, don't worry about the camp. Worry about the word. If the camp doesn't live up to the word, then who cares? No offense. Some people might consider this to be a camp. Okay. If we don't live up to what the word says, then who cares? See, don't come together under SOC if that's too much for you. Come together with SOC as long as we're part of the body. The second that SOC is wilding out, the second that I'm wilding out, cut me off. I told y'all this before, and I mean it. This might be bad advertising or whatever, so be it. If I'm out here wilding out, or if you listen to us and you're not getting any word, you're not getting any improvement, cut us off. Stop listening. If I'm sowing something into you that you think is not worthy of you sowing any kind of time, talent, effort, energy, gifts, whatever into, cut it off. I'm not saying if you're not giving time, I'm gonna be very careful. Again, I've said this already. I'm not saying if you don't give us money, you can't listen. No, if we're not worthy of you even thinking that we're worth your time, why are you listening? I'm just keeping it a buck, right? You know what I'm saying? If you listen to anybody, antibody, if you listen to anybody who ain't show enough feeding you, why are you feeding them your time? That's a waste of time. That's a waste of a gift that you've been given. You've been given 86,400 seconds a day. Don't even waste 60 of them on me if you're not being fed. And real talk, Not everybody feeds everybody the same. So I might be giving you something that's not worth your time. Right? Like there might be somebody that's better equipped to teach you. All right. I'm just saying that could possibly happen. And I'm okay with that as long as they're led by the Spirit. Maybe you can't take what I'm saying from me. And right. I try my best, as Paul says, to make you think all things to all people, but I also realize that this word is not for everybody. And my calling might not be for everybody. The way that I use stuff, I might be a little harsh sometimes for somebody. And that's all right. I'm all right with that. I'm okay if it doesn't work for you. But if it works for you, ball up your sleeves and let's go. Let's go. You know, I felt that. Let's go. That's what they say now. That's they come out now. Let's go. They do all that. But like for real, let's go. Go ye therefore into all nations, teaching them to observe and do what I told you. I baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Let's go. Let's get hyped about it. Don't give. I guess I give. I'm tired of giving and this and that or whatever. If we go into the amusement park, they don't say that. They say, let's go. If it's your sports team saying that, you say, let's go. If it's your time, to forage and stuff and you excited about it, you be excited. You come up with 2-3 bags. Some of y'all love cooking. You can't wait to give somebody your gift. Let's go. Let's get it. Let's love. Let's get it. Let's honor marriage. Let's get it. And you know what? Like we said today, let's work towards fortune. Let's get it. So far, we've gone over 4 of the 7 F's. What we talked about so far, we talked about faith, family, food, and today we spoke specifically on oh wow, not finance, but what's the term we're using? I might have to one day turn it to finance, but not fortune. And I want to read once again what we're talking about as far as fortune. Shalom, how you doing, Sister Rachel? Right, fortune once again is our money is important. We believe that currency, by the way, means anything we agree upon. Our money is important. We believe that currency is necessary to get actual assets. Just to be clear, money is not our goal. Money is our path to greatness, right? I really should say a path, but y'all get what I'm saying. Money should lead us to getting land, gold, silver, real estate, books, steel, weapons, etc. We are looking to get our hand on as much money as possible to open up as many businesses as possible. We also need to teach the language of money. Let us speak to terms that are connective to IRA, stocks, bonds, banking, ownership, and much, much more. Right? The money is not the root of all evil. It is the love of money. Your actions that start lifting money up higher than what it's supposed to be. But that's why we're not just calling it finance, we're calling it fortune. Our fortune is based on something higher than just that physical piece of cloth that's in your pocket. All right. That being said, I'm about to run out of battery life. We need to do our shout out. So we appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for being on today. I really do appreciate you. Thank you for your prayers and efforts as we've been doing a lot of traveling. As a reminder, those that are in Georgia, we're not going to meet in Atlanta per se. We're probably going to meet somewhere between Atlanta and Southern Georgia. I still got to get not 100% sure, but we're looking at July 1st. We've had a chance to meet with a couple of y'all just in passing, so we're thankful for it. We hope to meet with you guys by July 1st, and then maybe even meet with some of you on the East Coast on our way going back up north on the East Coast. But we thank you guys so much. We appreciate you. We're going to get ready to do our shout out real quick. It's going to have to be real quick because I got 5% left. So with 5% left, that means I don't got time for play. We appreciate y'all. So this will be a really quick and very basic shout out, but hopefully you guys get the gist of it. And by the way, for those of you who don't know how the shout out actually works, if you're on TikTok, just stick around with us. We give you a little bit of information on how we work and some things that we're doing to make sure that we cause change in the community. So we thank you guys for sticking around a little bit more. To everybody who's listening in, once again, we give all praise and honor to the Most High. Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree, and her business is making sure that the health of the diaspora is taken care of. And we thank you guys so much for once again supporting and helping her in her endeavors to make sure that that is taken care of. So we thank you guys. We appreciate you. We honor you. And we're going to go ahead and get ready to take our leave. So to everybody, if you're on TikTok, once again, stick around so you can be part of the shout out. Hopefully you'll be part of the shout out with us and you'll see how that works out. To everybody else, once again, we thank you for being on, and we appreciate you. We look forward to seeing you guys next time. I'll be on this evening, Kofi_42, still down. So we'll be on Kofi_40, the original page, if you'd like to be able to participate this evening. And we're on, if this is your first time with us, we're on every rising at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. We're on every weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time, except for Wednesdays. That's my day off. On Wednesday, we still have somebody who does the sessions in the rising for us, though. And we have somebody that comes on the evenings tomorrow. And early Shabbat Shalom to you if I don't see you by this evening. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. I'll be on. 10 a.m. we'll have the podcast. 11 a.m. we'll have Shabbat Beit Sefer for the children. 7 p.m. Eastern, and this is all Eastern New York time. 7 p.m. we'll have the women's meeting. And somewhere in between there, we're going to try and see if we can make up for what we missed with the with everybody who's part of the ministerial staff, and for what's going on September 29th through October the 6th, where we're going to be meeting up for our, whether you can meet all the days or not, we hope to see you, but we'll be meeting up for our Feast of Tabernacles. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. Thanks for being on. Facebook people, hopefully we'll be back on tomorrow. I've been having a little bit of issues with that device, but hopefully we'll be back on in front of you guys. Keep taking care of each other. Stay committed. Love you all. Take care. And we'll be talking to you guys soon. All right. Shalom, family. Peace. And remember, as always, sorry that you were loved. You were necessary. You were majestic. You were fearfully and wonderfully made. And you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom. Peace. If I don't see you later, Shabbat Shalom. To everybody who's still with us on TikTok, this is how the shout out works. Pretty simple.